Sorry, I was hoping Betsy get configured.
I just thought you were enjoying keeping me muted.
Not on purpose.
Lori, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you could join us tonight. Stacy, it's good to see you as well.
You too, Paula.
So quiet at the beginning. So Peter, Stacy Walker is going to need to be able to unmute. I guess you already have her there. Lori, are you planning on speaking or are you just joining us to check in on Stacy? Do you know Stacy?
I'll just be presenting. I think she's just here just to help support. And then Gem Prep Nampa's new principal, Gerald Love, will be joining also.
Oh, that's really good news. Good deal.
Yeah.
And Stacy, should we have him have the ability to unmute as well? Will he speak or just you?
I will just speak unless the board would like to have him introduce himself. He's welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gerald, welcome to our board meeting. We've met through email and now we meet through little tiny windows. So welcome to our meeting. And to Nampa Gym Prep. Peter, are you sharing a screen with Betsy? Is that why I don't see her name? I think she's there.
Let's see. I'm looking through. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't see her anywhere else unless she's with you on a screen.
Nope, she's not with me. She's in the, I think she's set up in the boardroom. So I'll have to go check.
Thank you.
So I'll be back, which means I'm going to be away from my computer, which means I can't click any buttons to fix
2
anything.
minutes, 2 minutes. So Chairman Rost, both the clerk and Peter are working with Betsy trying to get her on.
Thank you. I think we can wait for that.
Yeah, we just can't get her to click in for some reason.
Okay. Stacy, we have your presentation. Did you want us to drive or did you want to share your screen?
I can share my screen if that's okay. And that way I can put it in the present so it'll be a little bigger.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
I see Betsy showing up at the bottom under trustee. So I think anytime you're ready to go.
I will wait for Mr. Jur's
Oh, we're
cue.
waiting for Stacy, so it's okay.
And when Peter gets back and he can run the show.
Betsy has audio, but no video at this point. She can see, but we can't see her.
So she can see the screen.
She can.
Okay. All right.
And she can hear.
Did Mr. Jers make it back to his?
He's walking
Yep, I'm
back
back.
that way. Oh, you can see the ceiling in Betsy's.
Oh,
She
Yes.
just has the bottom camera on instead of the
Yeah.
top one. Betsy, if you click on where it says stop video, that little arrow, if you pull that up, it'll say select a camera, and you'll just need to switch to the other camera.
Yeah, I just looked at that. I don't know why, but it was that one wasn't working. Okay.
I will make you able to unmute yourself. Yeah, we're calling in reinforcements. It's not working for her, Mandy.
But she can hear us, right?
She can hear you. Yep.
Okay.
And she can't unmute herself, but I just unmuted her.
I'm here. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
No worries. As long as you can hear us, I feel like we're pretty good
You
to
can
go
kind of
ahead
see her.
and
I know.
start.
Sorry.
Can you see the screen, Betsy?
I can. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, then we're good to go. Peter, if you're back and you want to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, I think we'll get that flag up. Thank you. And we can start. I call the meeting to order. And if you can join me in standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the
flag of the United
United
States
States
of
of
America
and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. I'm not sure if we are just on Zoom or Zoom and YouTube today.
Or both.
Okay, so however you're viewing us today, we welcome you to our meeting. Please know that if you're on Zoom, you can hear us and see us. We cannot do the same for you. And if you are on YouTube, we cannot see you and we're not seeing anything in chats. There aren't any chat rooms that are open and we're not really able to converse back and forth with you, but we're thankful that you're here and able to listen in this evening. Our next item of business we'd like to do first and foremost is swear in our newest trustee. We put this right to the top of the agenda today so that she can have a part in the rest of the voting for all of the duration of the meeting. Ms. Board Clerk, Mrs. Wallen, will you please issue the swearing in of Betsy Keller, our newly appointed trustee for Zone 5?
Betsy, do you swear to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and the laws of the state of Idaho, and to faithfully discharge all the duties of the office of trustee of Neopa School District number 131 in Canyon County, state of Idaho, as required by law to the best of your ability?
I do.
Yay.
Yay!
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Thank you so
already
much.
been previewing documents, so she's ready.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, I think luckily you're there this evening. Tammy can get you that code of ethics and get that all signed up tonight, and welcome. All right. So we'll move on to our mission and vision statement. Peter will put that up for us and make it nice and big so we can see it. Thank you. Trustees, our mission statement.
The mission
of the Nampa School District
is
is to ensure high levels of
levels of
achievement
achievement
for every student.
student.
And our vision statement.
Every
student is
fully
engaged in
extraordinary learning experience,
Preparing
for
for
successful
next life.
next stage of life.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda are our Nampa Education Association comments. Is Mr. Main with us this evening?
Mr. Mead is not able to be with us. He sends his regards and has let us know that he is out of town, taking his last little bit of relaxation before teachers report on Thursday.
Understandable. All right, trustees, do we have any comments this evening? And maybe we can go in a roll call order. That's all right. Tammy, you're muted.
Trustee Simpson,
None for me right now, thanks.
Trustee Westfall,
Yeah, I was able to sit in on the town hall today that was sponsored by the Idaho School Boards Association for trustees and health department officials. It was enlightening to see the processes being used around the state, and then some information from the ISBA's executive director about, I think about the oath Betsy just took and that we all took about following laws and things like that. And she talks about being prudent in our plans and what would prudent folks do, and listening to health experts as part of that. But it was very interesting and helpful.
Trustee Kip,
Yeah, just one comment. I was charged probably more than a few months ago with going through the trustee handbook and making some suggestions and comments, questions, clarifications, and I completed that today. I had a special fire under me since we were going to be bringing in a new trustee, but I've passed that on now to Dr. Keller and to Tammy for them to help us with the next steps. I'm not sure exactly of the next steps, but they are going to look at it, and then perhaps we could, and I'm just thinking out loud now, but assign different sections to different trustees for their review and input. I'm reminded of how helpful the information was, but that perhaps we need to have a little more of a friendly ramp up for our new trustee, because it is a lot of thick, important, but very heavy information. And my comment to Dr. Keller today was, it's taken me a year to get to where I think I even understand all that is there. But that is forthcoming.
Trustee Keller,
I would just like to say thank you so much for the warm welcome I've received, and that I have been watching from afar for a while and have greatly admired this school board, and I'm anxious to learn from and work with you.
Chairman Rost.
Not at this time, thank you. All right, public comments. We have changed our format a little bit now that we are able to have folks join us for Zoom calls and do public comments via Zoom for their 3 minutes. So we do twofold. We invite them in for public comments on Zoom, or we take written comments so that the board clerk is able to take and receive up till noon, till the day of the meeting. Ms. Clerk, can you alert us as to what comments you've received for this meeting?
They're included. Peter can pull them up if you'd like. There are 4 separate people who have submitted written comments. The second one is, the second document is a patron who sent 3 separate screenshots with some questions. And I believe they're all around school reopening.
Thank you.
And then we have Mr. Young, who's requested to speak on a topic around athletics.
Perfect, thank you. Trustees, I hope that you were able to receive all those electronically for your reading. The good news is they are not, the written documents are not surrounding an action item this evening, but they're really good information to have for us to take into consideration as we continue with our duties. And for Mr. Young's public comment, I think we'll take that at the time of the new business item. So I think with that, we can go ahead and move to the, well, actually, I should pause for just 1 second and verify if there was anyone else on this call that was looking to get in on Zoom. We had our noon deadline today, so maybe that's not a prudent thing to do. Okay, we're not seeing much for that, and it is a noon deadline. So let's go ahead and move to consent agenda. Trustees, is there any item within the consent agenda that you would like pulled to a new business item?
No, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is presented here.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Kipp, seconded by Trustee Simpson. Any further discussion or questions? I didn't have any either. We can go ahead, sounds like, for making sure nobody's trying to get off mute. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simpson,
Aye.
Trustee Westfall,
Aye.
Trustee Kip,
Aye.
Trustee Keller,
Aye.
Chairman Rost.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously, and we can move into our new business.
Chairman Ross, I'd like to welcome Stacy Walker, who's associated with Gym Prep Nampa. Perhaps she'll tell us what her new title is. We also have in the audience tonight Gerald Love, who is the new principal, and Lori Wolf, who has responsibilities in the overall Gym Prep Association. So they are here to give us an update on the progress of Gym Prep. This is our annual opportunity for them to share information and for you to ask questions if you would like to. So Stacy, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Dr. Keller, Madam Chair, and trustees. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share a little bit about Gem Prep this evening. Madam Chair, would you like me to share my screen or would you like to do on this? Either way, they're the same.
Whichever you're more comfortable with, it might be easier for you to have the screen, or we can send cues to Peter. He does a lovely job typically as well.
Okay.
Peter, if you would allow Stacy to share her screen, that way she has the ability to go to the sides. Thank you.
Fabulous. I think I see it. So let me go ahead and pull that. Can you all see it okay?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. So this evening, as Dr. Keller shared with you, I would like to introduce Gem Prep Nampa's new principal. His name is Gerald Love, and he is joining us this evening. He has been our principal for the last 4 years at our other Gem Prep school in Pocatello, which I'll talk about momentarily. So he's been in our organization a long time and has moved his family to the Treasure Valley, and we're excited to have him join Gem Prep Nampa. As you might remember from last September when I presented to you, I was pregnant with my second son. And so we now have 2 little boys. And so I chose to spend a little bit more time at home. And so I moved into a part-time assistant principal role supporting our online school, Gem Prep Online.
That's great.
So a little bit about our organization. We are the only charter management organization in Idaho. And so our first school was actually our online school, the one that I will be supporting now, and we opened in 2004. As you can see in this visual, we have continued to open brick and mortar schools. So our first one was in Pocatello, where Gerald was the principal, and then Nampa, and then Meridian. And we are planning to open 2 more in Meridian. So Meridian North and then Meridian South. So you can see that our charter management organization is continuing to grow, and it is almost like a small district in the sense that we can share resources that support. And so we do have a board that oversees all of our schools, and I will address that a little bit later as Trustee Westfall had sent in a question. So I wanted to make sure I'll mention that at the end. So thank you for that. We do have a college preparatory mission. So our mission is to prepare students for success in college by providing a high quality, relevant, and rigorous education through exceptional teaching, innovative uses of technology, and partnerships with families. So I will try to touch on all of those elements today. I have to say this is a little different in the sense we are normally presenting on our data, and this year we have little academic data due to the pandemic, as you know. So I'll be sharing some general information about our organization and where we're going, but unfortunately I don't have as many specifics as I normally would for you. We are really focusing on college prep, and we believe that this will support all of our scholars, but especially the scholars in Nampa. We know that college graduates earn more, they're less likely to face unemployment, and they're more likely to experience job satisfaction. In addition, they're more likely to own a home and be proactive citizens. And we want to ensure that we're giving back to the Nampa community and providing Nampa students with an excellent education. With our rigorous academics, our focus for our program is that K3 is mastering fundamentals, 4 and 5 is academics and leadership, 6th through 8th is ownership and a path to college. And then our 9th through 12th is independence and early college. All of our brick and mortar schools are currently K through 10. So this year we added high school 9 and 10, and then we will be rolling out 11 and then 12. Our online school, Gem Prep Online, is currently K through 12. So they serve all scholars of all ages. With the K through 6 is our elementary program, and we focus on personalizing learning through computers and small group instruction, and felt very grateful that we had a learning management system and Canvas in place when the pandemic came, and we had some systems there to help us pivot and learn from our online school at the time. So able to leverage that and think about best ways to support our scholars in that way. The one piece of data we do have is the iStation or the IRI for K through 3. And I did note that it was taken in March, as our scholars did take it when they were at home, and we sent home hotspots in the spring, but was different because they were at home, and so different than being in the school setting. But you can see that our scholars did make a 9% on average growth over the time from September to March. Our secondary model is the 7th through 12th grade. And so our goal is to have 60% of our students graduate with their associate's degree. And we've outlined 2 really clear pathways with an associate's or 18 plus college credits. And so the students will begin taking college credit courses in 9th and 10th grade. So this year in Nampa, we will begin to do that with our high school students that are joining us. We also have some clear expectations around our social emotional development, and have developed what we call competencies. So ways that we want our scholars to graduate with the skills to be successful, not only getting to college, but through college. And so these are some of those habits and mindsets that we are working to develop in our students. In addition, these were some competencies, the competencies that we focus on and the experiences that we are planning for them. We believe that teamwork begins by building trust, and we do a lot of work not only with our students, but as principals, we lead opportunities, something that we call circle, or different elements that are building trust in our schools with staff and principals, and have done a lot of work with that as our staff started last Monday, so on the 3rd. So they've been back working with us. And the last element is our partnerships with families. Our scholars were on time and present for 95.6% of the time throughout the school year. And then for Q4, we kept attendance by attending live lessons. You can see this is a picture of one of our teachers and his students attending a live lesson. So we kept attendance by live lesson attendance as well as work completion. And so we were really proud of this. Our live lesson attendance was around 95%. And so I'm working to get all the work completion and being really clear with that. And I've learned a lot and excited to do that as we begin this school year. We did have 4,400 hours, including 94% of our volunteers that for parents throughout the first 3 quarters of last year. As I mentioned earlier, we did add 9th and 10th grade to our school this year, and then we'll be adding 11th and then 12th. Our school, Gem Prep Nampa, when it is fully grown, will be no more than 582 students. And so that is our maximum for our students that are added. And so you can see that we have a very small middle and high school in comparison to the local public schools. And we've tried to be very clear about what we are trying to offer for families and scholars in the community, but understand we can't do all the things that the large public schools can offer. And so we've tried to be really clear with that and support that some families are best in the school district as well. I did add this in for Chairman Westfall, Trustee Westfall, thank you for mentioning that. So last time I spoke with you, we had shared that we were hoping to have our newest board member be from the Nampa community, as we did not have one previously. And so that was in September, and our CEO, Jason Bransford, had reached out to Emmett Wimp, and he joined us in December of 2019. So he's been with us now for about 8 months. And so he is He's the principal, I believe, of Treasure Valley Leadership Academy in the Nampa School District, and we're excited to have his expertise and that he brings, and he has been a great board member for our team, so we have really appreciated having him. Lastly, I know I had invited you to visit last year and many of you came. We really appreciated that. And so I was trying to think of a way to do the same. So if you would like to attend virtually, I did link this. So I hope you were able to watch it if you wanted to. It is a tour of our school. So if you're never able to physically go through John Park Nampa, you are welcome to watch this short 2-minute video. And then two, there is some dates that you guys can come. I did want you to know that for our COVID-19 response, we do have a webpage linked for our families. And so you're welcome to consistently see our updates. We did mention to our families that we are going to be opening fully online and have part of our plan is being in alignment with the Nampa School District. And so we wrote that for each of our schools, understanding what is happening in that community and what the local school district is doing is really important to our decision. We do not want to be against that, but work with that. And so that is part of our plan and what we've been communicating to our families. And so we will be opening school on Monday, August 17th, fully online. So we do have a few dates on here and they are welcome to change. But if there is a day, and I know last time Tammy was great about connecting some days that worked for you, we're welcome to have you join virtually, whether that's questions or even joining a lesson virtually to see how the live lessons are taking place at John Park Nampa. We'd be happy to have you. So I did write down Mr. Love's email for you as well. So if you do have any questions, and you can find it on our website. So thank you, Chairman and trustees. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you.
Thank you so much. Super appreciate you coming here tonight and putting this together and the invitations that you've extended and the show of solidarity. It's very appreciated. Trustees, do you have any questions or comments?
Just wanted to say thank you, Stacy, and good luck and congratulations on your new path. And then also Gerald, welcome to Nampa, and congratulations to you as well. And thank you, Lori, for taking time as well to be here this evening.
And I wanted to thank you for updating us on the inclusion of someone from Nampa on your board. Thank you for our new trustees. When we reauthorized the charter, we had a conversation about whether we could get someone who lived in the community to serve on the board. So I appreciate that's taken place.
Thank you. I think we are good to move to our next agenda item.
Thank you all for joining us. So the next item, Mr. Jers, I need to share my screen. This is really just a discussion related to some expectations that we have for our virtual, online, or blended learning. And I will share my screen. Our apologies that this document is not in your board packet. You can imagine that things are moving really, really fast for us in these days. And so this document was even edited today, and we know that it is not yet completed. So I'm just checking, trustees and others, you can see this?
I can see it, but I can't read it very well.
Awesome,
Yeah.
let me
Yeah.
make it bigger for you. All right. So one of the things that both of our parents, is that better, Trustee
Yes.
Westfall? Perfect. One of the things that we heard from parents, and we've heard from teachers as we've surveyed them, is to understand what really clearly are the expectations. So in the spring, when we made a really quick transition, we had just 2 or 3 expectations. It was about reaching out and connecting with students. It was about how we would provide new content. It was about providing feedback. Based on the feedback, we made some adjustments in grading, et cetera. You're familiar with that process. Well, certainly we don't want to start in the way that we started last time. We have spent the summer learning and getting better from our experiences in the spring. And so we've created a document that's meant to be guidance. both to help our teachers and our administrators, but a lot of this guidance is directed from or as a result of feedback from parents, teachers, and staff. So what we have attempted to do here, and again, this is a document that is living and breathing and will be different tomorrow. We have meetings scheduled tomorrow to talk more about honing it a little bit more, about the things that in this first column that we would really say, this is required. This is a non-negotiable. If we're going to be online, blended, or even face-to-face, what are the things that we're going to look at in order to support the overall learning in the district? So you'll notice at the elementary, this section here is focused on the elementary. We have purchased a new platform for grading, a new LMS. It is standards-based. It is one of those areas where our previous vendor was not able to deliver what they suggested they would be able to deliver. And it was a cause of angst. And it made it difficult to communicate accurately with parents about the progress of their students. So what is tight, what is required is that our elementaries will be using Otis, is the name of the LMS. We have already started some training and will continue some training with that. In addition, Otis has a really nice communication piece with it. So one of the things we heard from parents again is that we are receiving communication, but sometimes it's through email and sometimes it's through Flippad and sometimes it's through X or Y or Z. And so we're hoping to narrow this piece of communication to be really consistent for our families. So that, as an example, on Monday mornings, when students and parents are looking at the expectations for the week, they would have one place to go, Otis, and they would be directed then to their child's classroom, the expectations that are part of that, and the learning and the goals that are expected during that week. All of these things we're hoping are non-negotiables, meaning that it would be really consistent across our elementary program. There are other platforms that can be accessed through Otis. So a parent would go to Otis, access it, and then if there's additional need for a teacher or a classroom to use Nearpod or Padlet or Flipgrid, they would all access it through Otis. So there wouldn't be a second platform to learn or to log into, but the access point would be Otis. We've talked a little bit about what's asynchronous and synchronous. We have talked with some parents even today who said, even in the synchronous, could we make sure that we videotape that? Because some of us are working until 4 or 5. And so if we spend time with our students, we'd like to be able to access that synchronous video after school or at a time that's more convenient for a family to sit down. So we certainly have started to look at what that looks like directly. There are some expectations there. One of the things that consistently I think we'll see across the elementary are morning meetings, which set the expectation for the day and the learning that is about to take place. And then we'd certainly have opportunities for our parents to access teachers and for us to deliver small group instruction, which might be specialized instruction, it might be acceleration, it might be some remediation. Our access to our materials, certainly all of our classes will continue to use the district adopted curriculum. Most all of our curriculum have electronic components to that. In the elementary, you'll see those consistently available through Otis. So there won't be additional logins required. They'll go through Otis in order to access those materials. We certainly encourage our teachers to supplement with other materials as they find them. But our main curriculum will be district approved curriculum access through Otis at the elementary. We've outlined some assessment. There's been questions, will you grade? Yes, we will grade. We will grade whether we're wholly online, whether we're blended, or whether we're face-to-face. The opportunity to relieve students of the pressure of the grades in the spring really was a result of that transition, the stress that people were going to, and as a result of the feedback that we were getting from parents and students with their overwhelming stress that they were experiencing in the spring. So Otis will be our platform to record those grades at the elementary. And then we do expect teachers to continue to do those assessments, both formative on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that tells us how students are progressing and learning, and then summative as they look toward providing progress toward those grades. We've done something really similar at the secondary. One of the things that you'll see is that they're consistently at the secondary. We anticipate that there would be a weekly planning guide that parents and students would be able to access on Monday. We believe this is really important as students access up to 8 content areas, that they are able to see their whole week's worth of work, what goals they're looking for, what content they're going to be accessing in one picture. Students will then be able to manage their time, work on those things that they need to work in a timely manner. So all of those are expectations that will be there. We certainly will continue at Columbia and TVLA in the Summit platform because those districts have, Columbia, we're now in our 5th year, and TVLA was started on the Summit platform. So in the loose area, there is some flexibility here in some of the single access points, but we do want parents to have one place to go versus multiple places to go. We have expectations for synchronous and asynchronous. This is one of those areas that we're talking about right now. As teachers are coming back, as we work with administrators, what does this look like? What is the consistent expectation? At what point are students engaged synchronously? What components are we looking at asynchronously? In the online environment, since everything is delivered online, trying to figure out that, but also as we're thinking toward making a transition to a blended or a split schedule, what parts will be delivered synchronously, asynchronously, what will we do in the classroom, and what will those expectations look like when students are learning from home. Here are some of the ideas that we have. Again, these are being shaped and formed right now. How teachers communicate with students and parents, again, going back to some weekly plans. We have purchased a new district-wide communication tool called Remind. Many of the people who are listening online might use it for other purposes. It will connect with your current app, and it will allow students and parents to access in a timely manner those things and communication pieces that they need to be aware of. Instructional materials, really similar to the elementary. Assessment, we will be grading, which is one of the really common places. Our current pilots, we have not expanded the standards-based pilot at the secondary, so we're going to stick with that another year, try to get used to the tool and see what we can learn there. So Power School will be for all of those classrooms that are non-standard based, but our standards-based classrooms will be working in Otis, trying to bring some clarity to what students know and how they're progressing. We've given some guidelines here in supporting student learning. This document also has some places for us to talk about expectations in special education. We're really excited about what we can do in special education and the plans and ideas that we have, particularly as we start fully online. And then certainly pieces that when we have indication that a student is in danger or is threatening self-harm, some resources for teachers. So this isn't an action item tonight. This is our attempt to show you that we are working to think through some of the things that parents told us were important, things that they didn't like in the spring and how they might be different in the fall. And it's an attempt to give teachers some guidance and some assurance at what things they can use, where they have flexibility, and then what are some common things that we'll see across the district. So that's what we wanted to show you in our progress here. And remember that this will look different tomorrow morning about 9 o'clock. So questions or thoughts here?
Madam Chair, I have a question. Dr. Keller, are you feeling like our plan for additional teacher training is going to provide enough time for our teachers to become proficient in Otis?
Otis is actually quite intuitive, much like Canvas, which is what I think you're familiar with, Dr. Kip. There are a lot of components that are pretty intuitive. As teachers get comfortable with that, then there are additional components that Otis allows us to dig into, and we'll grow into that. So yes, in our first day back that's structured by the district, we do have a very specific training on Otis, how to access that and how to begin in it. We believe it will be enough for particularly our elementary and those who are in our pilot to be really pretty comfortable with it. I would expect teachers probably will like it well enough that they'll create their lesson plans in it. Nova, our fully online school, is using Otis completely and totally, constructing lesson plans in that and developing in that. So pretty intuitive. I think that we'll, yes, we'll have the ability for people to at least have a really good start at the beginning parts in those key parts.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much. I think this document is really helpful to answer some of the questions that I have seen as a trustee and had as a parent, last spring. So thank you.
Madam Chair, question, Superintendent, I want to just check my understanding. So elementary, it'll be Otis and parents will access information there. It sounds like middle school as well, but then the high schools, it'll depend. And do we still share kids?
Right. We are still hoping, and we haven't yet come to this, it's part of the discussions going on. There is a potential possibility that all parents would access content and information through Otis first. And then in Otis, there would be a connection back to Power School or to Summit. We're still actually in those discussions to determine whether that makes sense, to what extent that makes sense, or if we would at the secondary just go ahead and use Remind for that purpose. So a lot of discussions related to that. We are hoping that we can find the one spot where parents can consistently go to and then it branches out to the specific areas like a Summit or an Otis in those standards-based grading platforms. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Chairman Ross, question. Go ahead. Thank you. I just want to reiterate, this document looks awesome, and thank you for knowing that it needs to be fluid and that changes need to happen. I really appreciate your leadership and the team district leadership that knows that we got to be fluid and we got to be working at getting better at things as we take in feedback. And I clearly can see that from this document from spring to now, and I really appreciate that. Over the last few weeks, technology can always be a problem. For example, trustee Betsy, yeah, she's waving. Yes, so there will be problems. I mean, we know it. We don't want there to be problems, but there will be. And so I just had some insight from a dear colleague today that was like, everybody should have norms of like, if we freeze, here's the next steps, right? And so even thinking from the point of view of a parent, like if something happens, do we have norms in our district set up to be like, if this happens, like here's who we contact, right? Here's the best way to report to us that there are issues, kind of some of that, so that we can streamline and then get to where we can actually work to fix the problem or resolve or find a way around it.
And I think you're talking specifically related to tech issues, so connectivity or something like that. Is that correct? Is that what you're asking?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So we plan what one thing that we were really successful with in the spring were amazing people in our technology department that that transitioned their jobs to a help desk, and people I think were able to access that. They got help in a really timely manner. At the beginning of our time, we extended our hours into the evening so that as parents got home or if they were doing work in the evening, that they could access that. So our plan is to continue that. Certainly when we move back to blended, we'll have to talk about how we divide those resources. But if our tech support folks are not in our buildings helping with tech, they can certainly help parents and students problem solve those issues that come available. So it was one of those areas that we had positive feedback from parents and students and staff, with our staff being able to be accessible to them and get them help in a timely manner.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't hear any problems or complaints, so that's maybe why I hadn't asked you prior to that, but thank you.
Okay.
Superintendent Keller, is there any items for this chart that aren't on here yet, but maybe you're thinking to expand this in the future that we should just be mindful of to know that you're going to address them at some point?
If you have suggestions, we would be happy to listen to them. These are the areas that were the ones that were most evident. So I'm thinking you might have some suggestions.
I honestly don't.
Okay.
I really don't. I was just knowing that it's a fluid document, that this is the first time we've seen it. You're still working. And I thought potentially there were other things that you just haven't gotten to yet.
As we sought feedback, these areas have remained pretty consistently related to instruction. That doesn't mean that that wouldn't change or that we'd have to address it because something emerges that we haven't yet been thoughtful about in the future.
Appreciate it.
If I may just ask one more question, Dr. Keller. You mentioned that we're excited about our plans for special ed and all. Can you give us something? Can you give us one little tidbit about that?
Yeah. So the State Department has allowed us the opportunity to add one more layer in our special education program, in that we have to develop digital learning plans for our students. This will actually be really helpful as we move between a wholly online world to a blended world and back to face-to-face. In addition to that, all of our special ed teams will have to review every single individual education plan and look at the progress that those students are making. And even when we are wholly online, there's likely to be opportunity for some of our children, based on that very individual conversation, that says we aren't going to be able to meet those goals and expectations. So we might have to find a way to serve those students face-to-face in a classroom, very limited amount of groups, very specific skills, precautions, etc. So I think we're excited about the ability to dig in to see how students are doing and then to really plan individual plans for them. In addition, we saw some success in the spring. Our SLPs were amazing as they delivered their instruction online to students, really a telehealth model. And we saw progress in a lot of our speech only or our TIC students. So we're looking forward to that. And we're just, I think, excited for the fact that our teachers are ready to think about the individual needs of students. And I know that's been heavy on the hearts and minds of parents of students that have special needs.
I really appreciate that. I think we're very concerned as a board and as a community to take care of all of our students. And so I'm delighted to hear that there is opportunity, in probably the rare case though, for some face-to-face with all the necessary precautions to take place. I'm pleased with that and I'm grateful.
Okay. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. And if there are no more other questions, Mr. Jers, would you, Chairman Ross, are you ready to move on to the next topic? I guess I should check there.
No, you're perfect. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So we just wanted to give you an update on where we were with our elementary secondary school emergency relief fund monies or stimulus monies. This information has changed a little bit as we have analyzed our needs, as we have moved things around in priority. Mr. Jers, that's really small for me. I can bring it up on my computer for me to see, but I don't know if anybody else can see it.
Mr. Jers, we're getting like a split screen of yours, so it's only half is getting bigger, so it's still small.
We do
It's
see
a beautiful picture, but
is a
less helpful to
beautiful
see the
picture.
document.
Yeah. So this is just a reminder again, really a discussion and informational topic. We have at this point narrowed down what our responsibilities are to our private schools and our charters. We had estimated about 200,000 off the top of our 3.4 million. It came in a little bit higher than that because of interpretations on how we would support private schools. Heidi Ron in our federal programs has done a really nice job reaching out to those schools and working with them in their plans. Although they get this money, they do have to draw it down through the district. We actually have to purchase and be the purchasing agent through there. The ADA risk management, this is our $1 million. Again, we received 3.4. Early on, we planned that this opportunity to be in COVID land might exist for a longer period of time than just a year. And so this $1 million really is some buffer for us. It's to make sure that we would have money to address some needs in the following fiscal year as well. We think that we might continue to have that. It also is there to protect us against what we might see as a decrease in average daily attendance. So if we have parents who are concerned about sending their children back to school, who are struggling with wholly online or even blended, and our average daily attendance would drop, this is there to help us meet our obligations financially for our contracts. Our online school Nova, you can see that budget number, 850,000. We're happy to report as of Friday afternoon, we have over 1,000 students enrolled in Nova. And we've spent the last week and a half trying to staff, trying to maneuver, meeting the needs of teachers who have requested it, those who aren't comfortable being back in a face-to-face classroom, or just who have the interest in teaching in an online environment. 515,000 of this is to really meet the additional costs we're experiencing in sanitization and making sure our buildings are clean and those supplies. It's listed here as a contract adjustment, but it really is reflective of what we're seeing additionally in trying to make sure our buildings meet standards and that we have safe, clean places for staff and students to be. IT staffing, this was a replacement money. You remember that this was an item that was cut or is in the holdback, the governor's holdback. And we really at this point can't afford to reduce our IT staffing as we're increasing our dependency on them. The daycare is a new item. As you might be aware, under the CARES Act, if we have employees whose children are not able to attend school because school has closed or their daycare has closed, they can apply for an Extended Family Medical Leave Act, which would allow them to be home and be with their children, which is a lovely thing, but that would mean that we don't have a teacher in order to be with us in front of the classroom. So this is our attempt to help support our staff in making sure that they have options for their own children as we move between blended and online, that they're assured that their children are cared for well. And this is an estimate, it's close to 150 staff children we're enrolling right now in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. This estimate is through the whole year. Don't know if we'll need that for the whole year, but that is what that money has been set aside for. So it is a new item that the board probably didn't see before. COVID PPE. It would be really nice to say that you could buy 28,000 masks and several pieces of gloves and be done. But every day we learn that there are more tools that we need to make sure are available to staff and students. And we are working our best with our partners, and we have a lot of people who are helping us with that, but we are spending quite a lot of money to make sure that our staff has what's appropriate ready for them. Our nursing staff, for example, ISO gowns, N95s, the gloves that are appropriate so that as they interact with students that could be COVID positive, that they can interact in a safe way. Face guards, masks, sanitizing, wipes, etc. So this number is completely different than the number that you saw really early in the spring. And we think it's a more realistic number. And then finally in the spring, as staff were learning at the pace they were learning in the online environment, we encouraged them in the professional development that we offered to seek a credit. And that's what the 28,000 are, those staff members who took advantage of that opportunity. Wanted to let you know that there are a couple of pieces of money coming our way through, well, several different resources. The first resource for Otis, which is our learning management system, and our new online standards-based grading system. This money is actually the 10% out of the State Department's holdback. There was quite a bit of money that was distributed to schools, 90% of it that flowed through the federal government, 10% was held back at the State Department, and this is our share of that 10%. And we have applied for and will be able to apply $128,000 toward the purchase of our learning management system. The next piece of money is $30 million that is a bucket of money that every district has the opportunity to benefit from. And we have submitted a plan that Chairman Ross needs to sign. And this is to help us with our hotspots to make sure that we have access for all of our students. Our iPad cables and power bricks, particularly as we transition to a blended model. Currently, the bricks that we used were the bricks that were built into our stations at school. And as we're going back and forth between home, we're concerned about being able to do that. So a purchase there. And then one of the things that we heard from our secondary teachers, they were using our student machines. Well, they're the machines that you as board members get to use. And the screens are not exactly robust, and the memory and those type of things when you are streaming. And so we were able to, in our regular lease cycle, cycle some things out and add some stronger, larger screen computers for our secondary teachers. And we're in the process of handing those out now. Finally, and this has not come our way yet, there is money out of the State Department to support social and emotional learning, and that's about 30,000. So those are pieces of money to support the district during this time, and just wanted you to be aware of how we're using it and what we're using that for.
Thank you, Superintendent Keller. I'm happy to report that I have signed the additional blended learning grant. So that happened this afternoon. Trustees, do you have any questions for Dr. Keller this evening?
I have a kind of question to aid my understanding. Superintendent, on the daycare item, you mentioned that employees through the CARES Act or one of the federal changes could take an additional leave, which we would pay them for. Is that correct?
That is correct. They would receive 2/3 of their salary. And as a public institution, that's not a reimbursable claim for us.
Yeah, and we would have to hire then a sub.
Correct.
Yeah, so there's a cost one way or other there, and this would allow us to keep them teaching.
Yes. And in addition to that, childcare has just become an issue that we've heard really frequently in the feedback. So I'm responsible now to teach other people's children who's going to care for my child. So we have many of our staff that have elementary children, preschool children, and that's a concern. And so it works to benefit our staff. It works to benefit the district. And we're really pleased with the partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. So it's been a good thing.
Thank you.
All right.
Superintendent Keller, I had a quick question. Can you expand a little bit on the 850,000 for NOVA? Are those annual one-time use to get it set up? Can you help me understand that a little bit?
So it's kind of a yes and. At the beginning, when we had this idea, we knew that we would need to begin to start, because of the time frame, to allocate some FTE to actually start the program, to develop curriculum. And so we had allocated somewhere right around 8 or 9, 10 FTE that we said, hey, we're going to do some elementary, we're going to do some middle school, we're going to do some high school. So remembering that this school will bring in average daily attendance as well. So it is a seed money, if you will, in order to get us on our feet. But now, as we have grown, so the 850,000 really was a budget to meet the needs of about 300 students. Now that we have 1,000 students, what we've done is internally made some transitions and some moves. So we think that as NOVA continues to grow, and our intent is to continue NOVA after COVID goes away. This has been on district's long-term goals for a long time anyway, that it would maintain and pay for itself through average daily attendance. This really was to make sure we had the curriculum, the development of the curriculum, and making sure that we had a core of people in place so that we could plan through the summer. So
thank you. No, that absolutely answers my question, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate your mindfulness because it is my understanding that this approximately $4 million is one time. It will not be repeated after this year.
correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Any further questions, trustees, on that item?
I have a question, Chairman Rost, if that's
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
Do you mind going back to that screen really quick, Mr. Jer, so I can see? My question is with the custodial contract cost allocation for 515, with this being a one-time payment, is our custodial contracts going to be increased from here on out? Will this cover the needs for that? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah. So I'm going to let probably Mr. Dewey answer that. We represented that increased cost in what would be, I believe, a monthly payment. So I'll let Mr. Dewey add clarity to that.
thank you.
Is he unmuted?
Okay, can you guys see me? Can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you, yes.
Okay, so reality of the situation is we had a 5% holdback from the state this year, and a huge portion of that was our discretionary operational funds. And in order to balance our budget, one of the things we decided to do was take $515,000 of our current custodial contract, move it to the stimulus in order to make this year's budget work. So if we get nothing, or they don't bring our budget, they don't, and they continue to do the 5% holdback for next year on our discretionary funds, then we will need to figure out how to pay for that $515,000 next year. It is not a new charge to us. It is really an allocation of current charges to that.
It does represent, because we do have to justify to the federal government that it's a COVID-related expense. So it does represent those additional expenses that we're incurring because we're doing a lot of different things in order to sanitize buildings.
Thank you. And can you also speak to the difference between the custodial contract cost allocation and the COVID PPE? Is there overlap there? I mean, is the custodial contract more like cleaning supplies versus, because to me, I was kind of thinking it was similar, but maybe they're very different and I don't understand.
Yeah, they're very different. So we're talking about ISO gowns and gloves and face shields and masks. There are some cleaning wipes. So in a classroom, the cleaning wipes, those type of things. hand sanitizer, although we are using our custodial company in order to help us find some better deals and that type of stuff. But really that COVID PPE are all of those things associated with it, and the custodial contract really is and Mr. Dew, am I right? It's about a monthly, it's our monthly cost. It represents 1 month of our payment to ABM.
Thank you.
I think we lost.
Madam Chair, Superintendent, so on our list here, costs that were shifted or ongoing would be custodial, the IT staffing, and that would be it.
That would be it.
And so last meeting, we approved a resolution asking the legislature to restore the funds they cut.
Correct.
Okay.
So and hopefully they, again, they have to take action specifically not to do that. But our resolution was to certainly encourage them to not take an adverse action, that they would be restored.
So as we look at, information that's being shared about the millions being to safely reopen schools, a portion of ours is operations, and then the other portions are kind of one-time expenditures.
Correct. And I would think, I'm looking at the numbers here, even at this point, again, these monies don't represent what for us would have been a 5% holdback.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Trustees, any more questions? Nope, perfect. If you are finished with that section, Dr. Keller, you can feel free to move on to the next item.
Perfect, and I'm just checking for guidance. I do think that we have a public comment on this next thing, guidance for athletics. I do want to set the context. We put a placeholder here in hopes that after an SIC meeting this morning that we would have clarity and that we would be able to bring a plan to you. Unfortunately, we feel like the plan is shaping, but I guess what we're going to suggest tonight is not actually an action, but to tell you where we think we're heading, and so that the board has a little bit of time to think about it and then perhaps take an action on our September 1 meeting. So I don't know, Chairman Rost, whether you want to hear public comment or if you would like to hear what we've prepared for you, which will be completely new because we had to react to our SIC meeting this morning, which didn't bring the clarity we were hoping for.
It would be prudent if you could go ahead and go over the plan, procedures, progress that you've made. And we recognize when we put this on the agenda that all of these meetings were happening in very short order, but felt there was potentially some reasons to get this in a timely manner so that we don't adversely affect any timelines. And I'm not sure if that is or isn't the case. And so if you could walk us through this before we hear public comment, that would be helpful.
So pages 1, 2, and 3 really are a reminder to the board of what our SIC summer plan was. And the SIC as a group was able, so whoa, stop. Go back to the top, Mr. Durs. Thank you, I'm sorry. So right here, these guidance, these goals, we agreed as an SIC that as we put these plans together, aligned with the governor's 4 stages, stages 1, 2, 3, and 4, that we would work together as an SIC, trying to keep level and consistency across the playing field for all schools in the SIC. So this plan really outlines stages 3 and 4, because we agreed we wouldn't start any summer activities until June 1st. So Mr. Durs, if you will go down a little bit. Okay. So here's stage 3, and we were successful in stage 3. Our coaches, our athletic directors have done an amazing job at implementing guidelines and then following those guidelines and helping our students with that. Certainly, there are always rooms and opportunity for us to get better, but they really have been thoughtful about how we bring athletes together. What does that weight room look like? How do we sanitize in between groups? How do we make sure that there's space? The June 13th, this yellow section down here, so Mr. Jers, if you can bring that section up. This is stage 4. And technically, we in Canyon County enter stage 4, but Ada County, after they hit 4, were moved back to stage 3. So this is when we're saying, hey, we have Ada County teams and we have Canyon County teams. How do we keep them kind of on level playing ground? So the SIC agreed, honestly, to adapt what was in stage 4 using the numbers in stage 3. So we abided from June 13th on through almost the end of July in this stage 4, with the exception that our number was less than 50 instead of more than 50. And felt like those guidelines met the governor's expectations in stage 4. It allowed both Ada County and Canyon County to stay really similar in the expectations that were there. So this is just a reminder of where we have been. If you look down at the bottom, June 27th to July 30th, we have this crazy hope that we'd be able to compete and that we might be able to bring 2 or 3 teams together, that we could do some things. And that never really came to fruition because we were really working to keep teams separate. We had some outbreaks in some of the Ada County schools. So we were able in Nampa to have a few camps. Our coaches, again, did a really nice job abiding by these guidelines. We continue to have no out-of-state travel to camps or tournaments that we were able to agree with. And we really were never successful at having any competitions between SIC schools. So we had some scrimmages on our own campuses that were limited and were carefully guarded, but we weren't able to really advance there. And then we had no middle school students participate. So that's the plan we have just emerged from. Okay, I wanted you to know that. So on page 4, at the top of page 4, we have been working both with our middle school folks and with our high school folks. In middle school, we work in the Inter-Valley League. We set some guidelines that we wanted to make decisions in. Certainly the easiest thing would be to say, we're in red, we're not going to do anything, we might not ever have hope for a season. That is not what we want. We want to, as long as we can, until the writing is really clear on the wall, to provide hope that our students would be able to have a fall season, and then a winter season, and then a spring season. We certainly want to prioritize the safety of students, coaches, officials, who might be in those vulnerable groups, and our families, certainly. We would like to abide and align with the IHSA rules, and they have given us some guidelines. They have given us some directives, but we also have some guidelines. After this morning, although we still have this desire to certainly understand the needs and the decisions of our colleagues across the SIC, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to come to a consensus completely and totally, and we need to begin to make decisions. So we certainly don't want to ignore our partners. They're important to us, and we're part of the SIC. And then we really want to, in this plan, if we diverge from another district or if they diverge from us, we feel like we have this responsibility that we set no team up for failure, because one team, for example, has had 3 football games under their belt, and another team, this is their very first game. That makes sense in explaining that 5th bullet, that we really want to be cognizant of that. So with those in mind, our suggestion from our middle school athletic directors, and they did meet with the Inter-Valley League last week, is that for our middle school, that we delay the start of practice until September 8th. This is the date that whatever the board decides on September 1st will either continue us being online, which means we're still in the red, which means we won't be able to move forward with this plan, or it's a date that we might be able to move back to a blended learning model. And if that's the case, then we feel that we could bring students back in order to practice. So this, as they've outlined it, they've looked at football games. Each of our middle schools would play each other. So they'd have a season of 3 games. Cross country would have 3 dual meets. They've addressed the park. This park allows us to do a lot of things in spacing kids out. And volleyball would actually see 6 matches. They would play the 3 other once at home and once away. And then we wouldn't have any playoffs at the end of the season. So this would be a Nampa only league. There are 8 of our Inter-Valley League members who are going to move forward with practicing starting on the 17th of August. And they will work their schedule. And then Caldwell schools at this time, our understanding is that they will not have any middle school sports, but perhaps do some intramural within their buildings. So this is where we're thinking we're heading with our middle school sports, maintains a season, gives us a little more time. And that's our first hope. Our recommendation for fans in red or yellow, based on IHSA guidelines and previous SIC agreements, is that we wouldn't have fans, audiences, because they are classified as a large gathering at our athletic events. When we are able to bring fans back, probably in the green, we would do some social distancing and have seating arranged in different venues. So that's middle school. Should I stop there for questions before we go on to high school?
I think that might be helpful. Thank you for that option. Trustees, any questions on the middle school recommendations?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Will middle school sports then only happen if we move out of the red? So middle schools, and what I'm understanding, middle school sports will not happen if we're not back in the building at some point.
I would think that that is a true statement. Where IHSA really guides our competition at the high school level. They're clear that in the red category, there are no competitions. So we're thinking that we would abide by that same direction at our middle school, even though we're technically a different league. We are all those same schools that are SIC schools and work under the IHSA. So yes, Betsy, I think that is the implication at this point.
Thank you.
Chairman Ross.
Yes.
I just, again, I appreciate your willingness to work with the entire SIC and problem solve through this to the best of our ability, thinking about kids and what's best for them. I'm wondering, something kept coming to mind from our board meeting and some information we got from the Southwest District Health in talking about how summer school was doable face-to-face because of the numbers and the facility and the ability to spread out. Mm-hmm. And so I kept kind of wondering, like, is this a scenario where we may very well be in the red, but because the numbers may be smaller than entire school buildings, 100% attendance, are these things that maybe we can come up with some things that may make it work if we are in the red because of those numbers? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. So I don't know how to answer that. Yeah.
And I guess I'm more just thinking probably, yeah, it's not an answer that I'm going to come up with, but one that that I would ask Southwest District Health and our community relationships with St. Al's and St. Luke's and
Right.
on some guidance on that piece.
And one of the reasons that we're not asking for an official action tonight, but to share some thoughts and ideas so it can germinate and we can listen to your responses, is that Southwest hasn't yet seen and had the opportunity to comment on this. Again, we met with Inter Valley League on Thursday or Friday of last week, and then this morning with SIC superintendent. So we haven't had the opportunity to vet this completely and totally, to be confident that this is everything that we want it to be.
Thank you for that reminder as well. Thank you.
I had a quick question. Can you help educate me on the Inter Valley League? How many schools are in that league? As you noted, 8 of them are moving forward with practice on the 17th. And are they then going to compete amongst each other? And I'm not familiar with these schools or this league.
So I can get us close, but I'm looking at the 3 ADs that I invited to attend and see who's out there. So I'm looking for Randy. I don't think we have any middle school ADs that I see, but I did invite Eric Bonds, Randy Potter, and Greg Carpenter. One of you first enough to get us accurate data, because I'd be guessing.
And can they unmute themselves?
Yeah.
It looks like Greg might
have just done that.
willing to speak if he
Oh,
can unmute.
Yeah, I think maybe Greg, yeah, he is. Let me see if I can unmute him. Now he's gone. Greg Carpenter, are you there? Randy Potter? While they're working on that, so Chairman Ross, there's a lot of overlap in SIC. So Caldwell, Valley View, not confident that CUNA is in there. We have the Catholic middle school session that is a part of that.
Do you want to know what schools are available?
Yes.
For middle schools?
Eric?
Napa Caldwell, BK's middle school, Middleton, and CUNA. The Meridian schools play amongst themselves and the Boise schools play amongst themselves.
And I think there's Valley View.
Yes, in Valley View.
And so I think that would represent 8 schools, not 8 districts, and those other 8 schools then. And again, if we're talking the CUNA and the Valley View, they are opening in blended and we'll be doing that.
And so thank you for that clarification. So those are the districts, and then they have their multiple middle schools within their districts. And so do you know if they plan on competing within each other?
What I think Mr. Lewis told me is yes, they plan on competing. Again, this was our folks met, they talked about the differences and agreed that this would be appropriate for our fall season for our middle school. So this was a decision in conjunction with our Inter Valley League partners.
And does that include all the way to Mountain Home though as well, I thought?
I don't think at the middle school. SIC used to include, and Mountain Home generally joins us, but they actually compete.
I just know when I coached at East Valley, we played Mountain Home.
Mr. Bonds, do you know?
Yes, Mountain Home is included in that, but I'm not sure where they are now because they've changed conferences. Right. And I've been out of the middle school realm for a little bit with my guys, my kids.
I'm sorry, Chairman Ross, that I don't have those right off the top of my head.
Nope, that's okay. So to be clear, those schools are planning to compete amongst each other in their Inter-Valley League. But right. The Napa School District recommendation is that we not join that league and that we have the games that you've outlined just amongst ourselves.
Correct.
Okay.
Chairman Ross, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
I'm sorry that my face isn't here. I'm like coming in from the only camera that works is on my keyboard and they can't figure it out. I apologize that I'm faceless tonight. Was this decision for the Nampa schools to not compete in the Inter-Valley League a decision made by the athletic directors from the middle school, or is this a is this a decision that has been made, or is this a decision that the board would still have interest in? Or I guess I'm learning. So are you saying this is what has been decided, or are you saying here's an idea?
So what we asked we convened our middle school athletic directors. We talked through what our academic plan looked like and its implications, what our goals were, and then asked our middle school athletic directors to work in conjunction with Inter-Valley League and bring us a recommendation. And that's what you see here.
Thank you.
Superintendent, how many young middle school students do we have who are participating in these programs?
I would have to get you that information. I don't know the answer to that. And I'm looking to see if Jesse Rhodes, are you on the line? And could you help us understand at West how many participate? I'll have to get back with you. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Chairman Ross, can I? Oh, I'm sorry, Allison.
Sorry.
I just need clarification. Help me remember which sports are played in the fall at the middle school. So is this just football and volleyball? Are those the two, and cross country?
Yeah, so, and we're talking the first season. So in the first season, which goes approximately to the end of September, the first part of October, we have football, cross country, and volleyball.
Okay.
And then we have the basketballs coming up starting at the beginning of October. And we
and I believe that's girls basketball only. Is that correct? Because boys basketball, don't they play in January?
And Betsy, I have not been at the middle school recent enough to tell you that.
I have, so I think
Ron,
that's the case.
Yeah, Trustee Keller, it is girls basketball and wrestling is the
wrestling.
the
Thank
winter
you.
club sport.
Thank you.
And no soccer.
No,
Not at the middle school.
not the middle level.
Dr. Keller, this is Jesse Rhodes. Were you asking how many students participate?
In athletics, if you had a good guess at that, so that we could at least give our trustees an estimate of how many kids this might impact.
I think a good estimate at West is about 80 to 100 students each quarter or each group, each season group. So like if it's volleyball and cross country and football, there's at least 100 in that season of total participants.
Okay.
And then about 80 to 100, maybe up to 150 each season from West.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. You just shouldn't show me your name on the participant list. Thank you. We can get you that information so that you have a clear expectation. I don't have that. Okay. Any other questions on the middle school?
Just a comment. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around how we could have athletics if the school is only meeting online. Just the consistency for me, there would just be a lack of consistency, it seems. So just a comment, just a thought.
That is one of the issues that we're trying to work through as well. And you'll see maybe some other ways that we're trying to work through it as we look at the high school schedules as well. So it is an important part for us to consider.
And I'm wondering if there are some sports that would cross country be one? I mean, certainly we're seeing folks golf, but I'm just wondering, what the sizes are, if there are cohorts of kids, what the health department and medical experts say about the contact and the risk. And I just don't know because.
Yeah. And Trustee Westfall, you're exactly right. IHSA has done a really nice job in their guidance for, it's somewhere here, in their guidance for us. They actually have independent appendices telling us about the risk in each sport and then what would be appropriate accommodations or ways that we could look forward. And your guess is right. Something like cross country is certainly less impactful than a contact sport like football and those type of things. And then volleyball in the middle, those type of things. So we do have some resources that give us a little direction there. Other questions on middle school before we move on to high school? Mr. Jers, can you take us down to that section, please? All right. Again, we start with a little bit of context. I reviewed the SIC guidelines. We were successful with that. We did suspend practices the week of July 25th to August 1. There were 3 exceptions to that. One type of exception at each high school that was actually already pre-planned a lot in advance. So we allowed those activities to continue. It did allow us an opportunity to catch up and make sure we were prepared for the fall for teachers returning and just to give us a clean break in the close contact. IHSA does allow schools to begin practice on August 10th. That was the date, and there were districts in the state that began practice yesterday. The SIC superintendent, because of the issues here, both in Canyon and Ada County, agreed to postpone our initial start date to August 17th. And also in addition to hope that we would come up with some other guidance that would be maybe aligned with each other. Emmett is the exception to that. They are not in the red category. And so Emmett, although they're part of the SIC, went ahead and they started practice, I believe, on the 10th. Skyview did have originally permission to start earlier because they had a preseason competition. In order to get their 10 in, they would have had to start earlier. So we've already communicated with CUNA and we'll either work to reschedule that game, but we won't play it because we won't have the practices in place by that time. So I mentioned here that we had hoped for a common set of guidelines. We're not sure if that's going to happen or if it'll happen in a timely manner. So we asked our 3 athletic directors at our high schools, again, same type of scenario, come up with what you think would be appropriate for us to consider. And this is what, after SIC superintendents met this morning, our 3 ADs gifted us with their time this afternoon, and this is our tentative plan. So August 17th, which is the date that we agreed that we could begin practicing, we'd actually continue following the guidelines really outlined by IHSA in the red category, which does allow us to bring small groups of students back to our campuses to do things like conditioning, drills, things that don't share materials, things like that. And even in the group of 10 students, they suggest that we cohort 5 and 5, or maybe 3, 3, and 4 in order to create cohorts of students. They, much like they did all summer long, successfully would maintain physical distancing, face coverings whenever students were participating in aerobic activity. We'd follow those guidelines that we followed in the summer. And we believe, with a phone call to Ty Jones, who leads the IHSA, that some of those could actually count toward the 10 practices that would qualify kids to compete if we would move out of the red. Football has some requirements associated with it. I think Mr. Young is here. He could talk more to that, but I do think they have to have pads and helmets in order to qualify for an actual practice. We did want to be clear with the board that we expect Emmett, Valley View, CUNA, Bishop Kelly, and West Ada, we fully expect them to start full out practices on August 17th. The reason they're able to do this is that their schools are either not impacted by a red category or are going to try to do something in a blended way. Or in West Ada's case, they aren't even in session until September 8th. So technically they're not closed. They just aren't in session. We do believe, I've lost my place, that Caldwell and Boise are likely to follow a similar pattern to what we're suggesting to you tonight, because they have agreed to start online. September 1 is the date that this Board of Trustees will make a decision about our future after September 8th. If that decision was, if, capital letters, bold, if we weren't in the red, and if the decision that the board makes is appropriate, then we could begin practices, continue those through Labor Day weekend, which means we, in counting some of our conditioning practices, would be eligible to play starting the week of September 8th. Volleyball, soccer, and cross country, they actually start on the 8th. Football plays in that weekend and would be able to resume on September 11th, which is really the third week, I believe, in the football. So we would miss week 1, 2, and 3 of the football session. Skyview actually has a bye that week, but Nampa High and Columbia play each other that week. So we would have teams, neither of which had previous, in this season, football games under their belt playing each other. When Skyview does play the following week, if it works out, they would be playing against Boise High, which would likely have really similar experience. Depending on what they do, they may have one game under their belt because we're in a bye situation. But it's likely that they wouldn't have very much more experience than we would. This again goes back to one of those goals and benchmarks in our plan. Fans in the red and yellow category, if we're talking to Southwest District Health, and if we're talking about previous agreements in the SIC, we wouldn't have fans in the red or yellow. We'd have participation to the extent that we could in green, as long as we could physically distance. Masks would be required, and our athletic directors have explored an option to allow ticketing, so it would be easy to figure out who was going to be able to enter and when we would be limited at that capacity. So I'm going to stop there and take questions and take questions.
Superintendent Keller, as you look at your calendar of what you're proposing, where do tryouts come into that? So for the high school level, right? We've got soccer, volleyball. They have to have tryouts. Then they have to have their 10 days of practice so that they're not forfeiting games. How does that fit into this schedule?
So Mr. Bonds or Mr. Carpenter or Mr. Potter, I think I see you. Would you like to respond to that?
Who wants to take it on?
Well, what we would do is the first 2 days of tryouts would actually be one of or two of the 10 practices. We wouldn't go 2 tryout days and then start. It'd just be included in the 10 practices we have to have for football or volleyball, cross country or soccer. So it wouldn't be anything extra. It would just be a part of when we start practice.
And so am I correct in that for Columbia and Nampa, their first games are September 11th? And that was a football game. What do the soccer and volleyball schedules look like, or cross country, or any of the other potential competitions?
So I think, Mr. Jers, can you scroll back down to or scroll up to page 5? When we're talking about volleyball, I think we believe that they could start practice on the September 8th, which is a Tuesday. Okay. So again, they would have to do their tryouts in smaller groups in order to get some of those conditioning type practices to count with 10. And then they would have September 2nd through the 7th as full out practice times.
So if I look at my calendar properly, they don't have 10 calendar days before our meeting if we postpone this decision to September 1st.
They do not unless, and again, we believe IHSA has given us permission to count some of those conditioning workout times that will begin on August 17th as practice dates. So they could, if those count.
We would go, yeah, we would go volleyball and soccer competitions cross country if we were able to start on September 8th, then or 2nd. Our first competitions would be the week of the 14th.
If we couldn't count any of the workout tryouts, Mr. Potter, is that correct?
Right. That's not talking football. That's just volleyball, soccer, and cross country.
Football for everybody would start on the 11th would be our first actual competition. And then like Randy said, that following Monday would be our first competition for the rest of our sports. That would give us 10 days to get all our practices in. And most likely, I mean, also you have this, once we are given the green light to go, the 2nd and 3rd could be used for tryouts. And then from the 4th on, that'd give you another 10 days to be ready for your first competition. So which would be the 14th.
So it sounds like we'd have to make a correction to this document. The September 8th week would be football, and we would move those other to the week of the 14th.
Yes.
Yeah, it really just depends. If August 17th is our first day that we can officially count practices, our volleyball, cross country, and soccer teams would be eligible to play the week of the 8th. However, I think also our thinking is with football, we have no room, or there's no room to move games. But with soccer, cross country, and volleyball, we have a little more leeway to play multiple games in a week. So we have some flexibility in rescheduling games.
I'm going to ask a really tough question, and I really hope you'll just be as honest as you can with me. I heard Coach Harsin address folks when he talked about this same subject of conditioning versus practice versus competitions, and the level of risk that he was concerned at putting his players in for injuries when you get into a game situation that you haven't been adequately prepared for. Are we potentially putting any of our student athletes at a higher risk by not allowing them to practice this typical amount as other schools, or that we normally would in a regular season by condensing this time frame as is being proposed?
Gentlemen, you want to respond?
Sorry, tough one.
I would say for football, I can speak for Skyview. The one thing that we're going to have added is we have a bye that first week. So that's going to give us some additional time. The one thing about Nampa and Columbia, that's going to be their first game against any competition. So I think I think we'll be fine there. And I think the other sports, I mean, I think the conditioning is going to be great for soccer because that's the one, that's the one sport, I mean, other than football, but you're continuously running, sprinting continuously. So with us being able to do the smaller groups on the 17th, so you start counting those days. If we're going through smaller groups on the 17th and we're conditioning all that time, I think our conditioning level is going to be pretty good. And as far as football goes, we don't hit a lot now in practice as it is. So generally that first game is the first time you really get after it. So I think we would be okay, but and I know my coaches and Randy and Greg, our coaches are not going to put our kids in harm's way. I mean, I have no problem if my coach came to me and said, we are not ready. We will forfeit that game until we think we're ready. We're not going to put a kid in a situation that's not good for them, not good for the team.
I appreciate that. And I think that's the position I feel like I sit in right now that says, I don't want to set you up to be in that position or to have to forfeit, which is why I'm really genuinely asking that right now.
Which is why we talked about that pattern, which says Nampa and Columbia with 8 full practices under their belt would play each other with the conditioning wrapped up. And then Skyview actually would have more than their 10 practices, playing a Boise who's likely to have only played one game or perhaps be in the same position. I'm guessing that Boise doesn't have bye the previous week, and we don't even know whether Boise will start their practices on the 17th. That's the earliest I think that they would consider that.
I would
Madam
say
Chair,
that,
I just want to say thank you so much for that question. I think it's extremely important, and those questions have to be asked at this level. So just a comment, I just feel a great tension as a trustee thinking about protecting our kids, following these guidelines, and then I'm thinking about those seniors that it's their senior year of whatever sport, and my heart is aching. What I like about this plan is that there's hope. There's some hope for something to happen. I would love to see our community, the larger community, get crazy with doing good things to move us out of the red. And this plan gives me hope, but it is a real tension because the last thing I would want to do is to put any of our kids in a bad situation, or our coaches or our ADs for that matter.
Mr. Carpenter, was there something you would hope to add to that?
yeah, I would just say that when we were brainstorming our time frames, this was the best case scenario that we thought of to keep our kids safe, being able to have conditioning starting on the 17th. We're crossing fingers and toes and holding our breath that September 2nd is going to be a date that Southwest District Health, kind of backs us into a yellow. But if we don't get into a yellow, all of this is sort of for naught for at least an additional 2 weeks. We understand that. But, I think like Trustee Kipp said, we're hoping, we're hoping, and the safety of our kids, we talked about this earlier, safety of our kids comes first and foremost. So that we're just trying to see the future a little bit.
I think for our community, having Nampa and Columbia play that first week is going to be amazing.
Yeah, we had to change that to make that happen. We had to move that around.
Madam Chair, a question. We see collegiate sports with far more resources than we have here for our high school teams, canceling and shifting seasons to later in the year. Why isn't that on the table?
So I'm going to take the first stab, and then gentlemen, feel free to jump in. From our perspective, it is on the table. I think that there is some point in the year where, let's say we're still in red on September 1st when we have to make this decision, and we know we're going to continue to be there. That will impact this whole thing. Somewhere, a football season, if you're able to salvage 8 games, we might still be okay. If you're able to salvage 6 games, but there's some point where it doesn't make sense. And then in order to give our kids opportunity, I think we have to consider what this would look like in the spring. I honestly think that it's an idea that takes us out perhaps of finals of our, unless we do something just in our group. Does that make sense? Because I think we have a lot of districts in the state who will go ahead and play their football seasons. They have no cases in their county. Their counties are in the gray. Lots of reasons for them, because in their context, it's just not the same. So I do think we have to keep that on the table. I would prefer not to move there right now, as long as we have hope and that we have a plan that could work. And then it does give us some time to think about, well, if we can't do this in the fall, what does it look like in April? Can it be possible in April? How does that fit with our other seasons? And I think we owe it to our students to try to give them the opportunity to compete in some way, in some measure, if we can do it safely, whether it's this fall or next spring.
Superintendent Keller.
Greg.
I was just going to say, we're operating under the guidance of the IHSAA, and we have little control over moving seasons as well. That we're operating under what they say we can do. I don't even know if that's an option to move things to the spring.
I think we'd be on our own.
And does that, the IHSAA guidance say if we are in red, substantial community spread, as reflected by cases in the community, by indicators selected by the health department, not just made up by the health department, that we have to not hold sports?
Can I insert a question here, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
I've been reading the guidance that the IHSAA for the opening up high school athletics and the SIC summer reintroduction program. And in both cases, they reference the governor's reopening stages. It says this must include, let's see, all schools who host events are required to have a plan in place for fans and teams attendance. So this is talking about the public attending. But in it, it says this must include reference to the governor's reopening guidelines. Each district school board, in conjunction with guidance from the local health department, must approve the plan. School districts may use the governor's reopening guidelines or come up with guidelines of their own. So I double checked on this governor's reopening guidelines. We are currently in stage 4 in Canyon County, and it says gatherings of any size are allowed, but should adhere to the physical distancing and sanitation requirements described in section 4. The SIC summer reintroduction program, number 1 says the goal is to protect the health and safety of students, coaches, and spectators. Number 2, it says consistency with Governor Little's stages in Rebound, Idaho. So looking at all these things my question, I guess, is what is Southwest District Health, what kind of jurisdiction do they have over this? Because in both of these documents, the only thing that's referenced is it must be in accordance with the governor. And if we're in stage 4 in Canyon County, then there's no limitations.
Betsy, if you
gathering.
Yeah, if you continue in that document a few more pages in, maybe 10 or 11.
Okay.
Idaho High School Athletic Association say, hey, if you're in category red, now they're talking about Southwest or District Health. They're pretty clear that there should be no practices, no competitions. I've actually lost my page that's there, but are you seeing it there? Are you looking?
You know what? I'm having such computer difficulties today that I'm looking at a printed copy. So I don't have the whole thing printed. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have seen that, and I do remember seeing that. But my question is this as a board, it looks like in the very beginning, both of these documents say this is up to the board to decide in conjunction with guidance, but not necessarily the board needs to adhere to the guidance. And I'm just wondering, do we have some playroom here? That's my question.
And that was kind of my question too. What does the Idaho High School Association bind us to as members?
I'm going to be the one that's going to say it. I think Governor Little has given us plenty of playroom because he's kind of thrown his phases out the window. We have more cases currently than we did before, and we haven't moved. We're still in phase 4. So I think if we go back to the guidelines that were set in the spring by the governor and by the State Board of Ed, like those kind of got thrown out the window, and they're not even really looking at them anymore. And I think the reason is because we all want kids back in school. We all want kids participating. We all want, right, life back to normal as much as we can. So I just feel like because of that, because we're still in stage 4, and I'm not so sure that we should still be in stage 4, we already have been given play with that as well, where it's really been put upon us as trustees to make the really hard decisions, and make these decisions. And I'm so thankful that we have our ADs and Dr. Keller and Mr. Young, one of our coaches, and Southwest District Health and all the rest of those community allies, the SIC and the high school sports association, helping to try and guide us, because it's really been put on us to make that overarching decision of what is best and safest for kids.
Thank you, Trustee Simpson. That actually was my question of understanding as well. And as I listened to Southwest District Health's meeting this morning, one of their board members, in fact, made that exact clarification that said, we are the guiding body, and the school districts are making their own decisions. And I do feel that the decision rests solely in our lap. I feel very out of depth. IHSAA has controlled sports historically until a week ago. And every day I've done everything I can do to educate myself on what this means for our student athletes. Because I see it the same way, that this is solely our decision. And I've been struggling to understand how it is that many of the other school districts that are choosing to compete are also able to do so. And my understanding is it's that same reason that that they're able to make that decision for themselves.
Yeah, the leaders aren't leading. So let me just make a suggestion, an observation, and then a suggestion. My observation is that according to this document, it says the week of September 8th. So yeah, the bottom line of that page, I'm looking at my bigger screen because my eyes can't read that. Because I have one of these less robust laptops with the screen. Competitions can begin if we are no longer in the red category. So by adopting this plan, I think we're doing two things. We're keeping hope alive, but we're already saying that if we're still in red, competitions cannot happen. So I think I think by adopting this plan tonight, we are saying if the community goes to yellow, this plan can go forward. If it doesn't, competition cannot happen. And this is the best advice of our ADs. So I'm in favor of this plan for that reason. Does that make sense?
No, I appreciate that, Trustee Kipp. I also want to remind the trustees that we do have one gentleman in the wait for public comment. And so we are not ready for a motion. I appreciate all the good discussion and that we were able to break it up. And I know a lot of that discussion is because we weren't able to see this document prior to right now. So typically we get all of these questions out of the way in the week prior that we see this kind of material, and we didn't have that opportunity because of the time sensitive nature that we took this on at. So probably with that, trustees, do you feel comfortable if we invite Coach Young to talk with us? And he is Skyview's football coach.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that because I know he is a football coach. And so I assume what he's going to talk to us about is football. So it relates. But there is more to this document, correct? And we are going to talk about it?
Yes, we will have to do that, and we can do it whenever you're ready for it.
I apologize. I think we should go ahead and finish out this whole document and then move to public comment.
So just as a reminder, in this document, our ADs have reminded us that competition for volleyball, soccer, and cross country wouldn't start until the September 14th, the week of that. So just keep that in mind. The recommendation is that until we move into green, that we wouldn't have fans. Certainly in red, we talk about large gatherings and those being inappropriate. Central District Health has made a comment that audiences are large gatherings, and that's where the limitation of fans there. Certainly we have districts who have large venues that feel like they can socially distance fans appropriately and might make different decisions. We do want to make the board aware of a couple of other issues. If we really don't have fans, then we wonder why we sell ASB cards, because the ASB cards, the benefit is that our students get into all home games and they get discounts to SIC. And certainly the revenues from those support our athletic programs. So we would have to think through what that means and how that impacts our programs. And then again, the correlation, no fans means no gate collections. And currently at our high school, our gate, among other things, covers the pay for our officials and our activity workers, our scorekeepers, our those that we have to have work. So currently at the middle school, because we don't collect gate, the district uses supplemental levy funds to support our officials and those activity workers. We'd have to consider how we would look at a different fund source, assuming we could play, but we didn't have fans. How are we going to pay officials and activity workers? And then at the bottom of this, Trustee Keller, and I have to tell you, it seems really strange to say Trustee Keller, even though I'm not Keller. What she just outlined as the requirement, technically the only requirement, because the rest then moves into guidelines and directive type things, is that this board eventually does have to approve an opening plan that has these 4 bullet points. And you'll see there that it's in conjunction with the local health district, that the plan has to be approved by the board. We have many of these pieces in place because they're represented in our overall plan. Our athletic trainers have done a really nice job at putting together a plan to return our students who had COVID and bringing them back safely into activity. We just haven't had time to work with South District Health to approve that whole package. So that is why it's not here for you today. And then we wanted to remind us about activities. We do have lots of sports. We have things like band and other things. We would suggest that they abide by really similar guidelines as outlined above, and that until we're out of the yellow, or certainly could provide physical distancing, that we wouldn't have performances and concerts where we're gathering large groups of people together from different places into one place. So that completes the information that we put together for you tonight.
Trustee Ross, or Chairman Ross, sorry. So perfect. This is, that last paragraph is kind of what I was looking forward to. So there could be plans put in place for like a small portion of the marching band, less than 10, similar to up above.
Yeah, we think so. I think we need to convene Ms. Avery and Mr. Hazing and Mr. McEntee to have that conversation and get their expertise in giving us guidance, but we believe it makes sense. There may be additional things, but I know that we also are buying equipment that helps us from spitting that stuff out and all of that good stuff too. So we would work with them in developing a plan.
And does that, I know, you know, concerts are on here. So that was my other question, or part of it was going to be, so does that help with like our choirs, and then also possibly like drama, our theater,
theater arts
departments? Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
Encompass that.
Thank you.
Chairman Ross, I have a question, and this is just a clarification. In the IHSA plan, and I'm sorry to be picky about this, I just want to make sure I have a clear understanding. The plan that's on their website, it says the school board, in conjunction with guidance from the local health department, must approve the plan. And the first bullet point here says, plan for fans and teams attendance approved by the Southwest District Health. So my question is, who approves it? Because one document says it's the board that approves, and another document says it's Southwest District Health.
Welcome to our world.
And so we have a school liaison at Southwest District Health. And so I imagine that it could go either direction. The school board could approve it. We could take that plan and ask Southwest District Health to review that, or vice versa. But yeah,
I guess my question is, must it be approved by the Southwest District Health? Because their outline on there says it doesn't, it's just the school board approves it. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand protocol. Is it absolutely necessary that Southwest District Health approves our plan, or can we move forward with our plan knowing that we're in the good graces of Southwest District Health?
I think certainly what our process has been in all of our documents and planning is to take what we've prepared and to spend time with Kimberly, who's our liaison there. And she walks us through things that she might be concerned about or not. It certainly is not a difficult thing to get it approved. We just haven't had time to sit down with this particular document and subject to
Right.
walk
Yeah,
her through that.
totally understandable. Yes. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
All right, Coach Young, are you ready? Chairman Rust?
I am ready. Mr. Young is unmuted. The
I
floor
am
is
ready.
yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board and Superintendent Keller. I wanted you guys to know, Trustee Simpson, I'm not just a football coach. I'm the track coach. I'm a math teacher. I'm the parent of 3. My wife teaches in the school district. We are as invested in Nampa School District as you can be. You know, I've got both a high school athlete and a middle school athlete. So everything we're talking about doesn't just affect me as a coach and a professional, it affects my family. We're as invested as you can be. And I really appreciate, you know, what you guys have to go through and, you know, the guidance you're looking for, the questions you're asking, because it does change every single day. And Dr. Keller's job is not easy. I wanted to clarify maybe a couple things that I heard you guys talking about. Trustee Simpson, you were talking about summer school and summer programs, you know, kind of asking questions, the success we had. I gathered all the data from our football coaches and the other 2 high schools. The 3 high schools had over 500 kids go through the summer athletic programs successfully through those guidelines that Dr. Keller read through with the SIC. We were successful. Any COVID case we had, I think there was maybe 1 per school, but they pretty much came from club sports that were kind of brought back into either our schools or just people that we knew about. But overall, we were successful running kids through the weight room, small groups, cleaning, sanitizing, skills and drills. Every Tuesday and Thursday out in front of Skyview specifically, we would have, you know, up to 60 and 70 boys. And then of course you break down into that 10 per coach and whatnot. And we had a great time. We were very successful. By the end of the summer, our kids were ready to play. You know, and so these last couple of weeks being off, it's been a little tough, you know, little break, but I'll tell you, my family, again, we're so invested, we haven't even taken a summer vacation. We haven't left the Valley. You know, we're so afraid of just what can happen, whether it's me, whether it's my son, Camden, whatever. I mean, my daughter still kind of hates me for it, but, you know, she understands because she wants to play volleyball. So anyways, it was a great summer, and not just our high school, the other 2 high schools, multiple high schools through the Valley, success based on those SIC guidelines, which kind of takes us to a point I think Trustee Kip was talking about, consistency with schools. All schools set a precedent in the springtime and basically shut down, no students, no athletics, no activities, and it was crushing for everybody. Well, this summer we were given the opportunity to set a new precedent, which we did with those SIC guidelines and the direction of our athletic directors and Dr. Keller. We were able to bring athletes in. Like I said, we had those 500 kids through our 3 high schools, and we were successful, you know, and it just goes to show that we can follow the guidelines of this document or whatever you guys approve, that we can be successful. We can run sports. We can run activities. We understand there may be hiccups. There may be, you know, a few little things here and there, but that's kind of what we're all in this job for, is to kind of be trusted, to do our jobs, to take care of young people and to push them to grow and just become successful. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of peace of mind that the summer was absolutely successful. And I do think, like Dr. Keller said, and it's like, welcome to our world. Things change every single day, but we've proven that we can do it. We've proven all summer long at all 3 high schools that we can run kids through our activities and be successful. And so that's the number one thing is, you know, not just me, I speak for all the coaches in our district. We want the chance, you know, we're just chomping at the bit to get back together with kids, whether it's this plan and, you know, to kind of go where you guys are asking about who has control. The IHSA, I've been watching all the football committee meetings all summer long, just waiting for answers, and there's been none. And the only answer that has come out of it is we want to play fall sports and we're going to push the control back to our individual school districts because it is so different, you know, from community to community to community, which kind of brings me up to another point that I need you guys to understand a little bit also.
Sorry, Mr. Young, I'm going to completely apologize. Per our proper rules, public comments limited to 3 minutes. You are our only commenter, and I think this is good information. So I wanted to give the trustees an opportunity to ask them, are you all right with extending more time to Coach Young? Okay. Perfect.
I only need a little bit. So
I'm just playing by the rules. You have the floor. Finish up.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. The next thing that I need you guys to understand is Columbia and Nampa are in a different world than Skyview also, you know, because Nampa and Columbia are 4A schools and they play pretty much Canyon County schools with the exception of Bishop Kelly. And Skyview being a 5A school, we play only Ada County schools. And so we're in an even tougher predicament where both counties are governed by different health districts like you guys have already been discussing. And so when you take things into consideration, the health of our kids, the number of practices, there's no rescheduling football games. You just cancel. There's no room in the budget, no room in the schedule to reschedule. Volleyball, soccer, there might be a little bit, but in football, there is no rescheduling. The schedule is set. There's nobody to find for the bye week. All the 4A teams are booked. All the 5A teams are booked. And so there are some issues in there that I need you to consider when you're making your decisions. You know, the world of Skyview in 5A versus Ada County is really what that comes down to. And then, you know, taking into account Columbia and Nampa and some of the schools in Canyon County, they're ready to play also. And so you need to consider all those things and starting on the 17th Monday with kind of our summer plan is what that really comes down to is back in the weight room conditioning skills and drills with small groups. That's what we did all summer and it was awesome. The kids were good. They did everything we asked them to do. The coaches were awesome and the success we had was just off the charts at all 3 high schools. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Chairman Ross.
Yes.
I would be remiss. I apologize, Mr. Young. I never meant to imply that you were just a football coach. And Mr. Young and I go way back. We both grew up in Idaho Falls, and he hung out with my older brother. So I know firsthand that he, as you heard him speak, he is invested in this community and our district and our kids, and we appreciate Mr. Young and all he brings to our district and your family. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Really appreciate you being here tonight, explaining to us how successful summer was and the things that we need to take into consideration with Skyview being that they are 5A and you're in a completely different scenario. And so that's really helpful for us to understand. Thank you.
All right, so Chairman Ross, we typically don't present you information on the fly, which is what we've done tonight. So I don't know that there's any other information to give you. This is, I can tell you that this plan is constructed with the experts that we have related to our campus. We know there are some uncertainties associated with it because we don't know what September 1 is going to bring. It does align with the fact and hope that we want our students to be able to participate in this important aspect of their lives. I do believe it aligns and is cohesive with the rest of our plan. Much like I said earlier, that there will be a few students who come back who might need some extra time in the welding room because they actually are going to have to weld in order to move through the CTE programs. We'll do that carefully and thoughtfully in small groups based on that need. So I think that the current plan is aligned there. I don't know what your preference would be tonight. Certainly, I'm going to stop talking because that's what I know at this point today. It could change tomorrow. Because the APs do have a meeting tomorrow with the SIC.
Chairman Ross, I would be okay to move that we approve this plan contingent upon Southwest District Health reviewing it as well, and unless they come back and say, no, this is completely out of reach, I think we then just revisit it in our September 1 meeting, knowing that that's there, and also knowing that it may be fluid and may change. But I feel like it gives our athletic directors, our coaches, our kids, our parents some goals to shoot for, and some things that possibly can happen starting August 17th under care. And yeah, that's my motion.
Second.
Trustee Simpson, would you restate what the actual motion is?
Yeah, sorry, because
I'm sorry.
I motioned and then I also spoke to my motion. Sorry. I move that we approve the Mr. Jers, will you scroll back up so I can see the title of this document?
So stop, don't go to the very top, go to page 3, page 4. So a fall reopening plan for athletics.
Thank you. So I move that we approve the 2020 NSD fall reopening plan for athletics, contingent upon Southwest District Health getting some eyes on this and providing feedback. And then also just that we're fluid come September 1st, knowing that something may change and it may come back and we may revisit.
I second for a second time.
Yeah, and Trustee Simpson, with the correction that volleyball, soccer, and those others would start the week of the 14th instead of the 18th, as this document states.
Correct, because that was already fixed as soon as you said it was going to be fixed in my head. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Simpson, seconded by Trustee Kipp. Any further discussion?
I think I have a concern with the middle school. I guess I'm disappointed to see that they're not going to have a chance to compete in a bigger league. And I mean, this is a whole year of disappointment, right? I mean, we're all disappointed that we would love to see something different regardless. I just have a heart for sports. And so this is a hard pill to swallow for me, I think. But I'm sad to see that I'm sad to see in both cases, if other schools within who we play are moving forward, it's disappointing, I guess, to me to see that our schools will be held back.
I think my vote tonight really is going to be one about equity. And I don't see how we're being equitable to our Nampa School District student athletes if we are not giving them the same opportunities as those that we intend for them to compete against. And so that's a really odd way to say all the other school districts around us are starting practice on the 17th. They're going to get a 2-week jump start of practices before any of our student athletes are. I don't feel that's equitable. And they're going to struggle with that as well. And I also recognize that they're going to start making decisions for their sports lives, and it's going to affect their school, and it's going to affect our district, and it's going to affect their families. And I say that in context of club sports went all summer long. Club sports will continue all through fall. If we hold back our Nampa kids in a different manner than all the other districts surrounding us, they will all join club sports for that opportunity to compete. And there is no equity in that for our disadvantaged students. There's a reason why this district over the years has not asked our kids to pay to play sports, that we went out for a levy to help cover these fees for them, because very high percentage of our student athletes couldn't afford the fees to play, and they can't afford club sports. So now I've just done my entire disadvantaged kids a disservice in not allowing them to play because they don't have the option to play a club sport. And that's a struggle for me in this plan. This plan is solely around Nampa maybe playing together, but not with the rest of their conferences. All of the rest of the conferences are continuing on and continuing on starting August 17th. So I don't feel that there's an equity in this piece. I also have a different take on this. You guys know me enough to know I'm all about risk mitigation and liabilities, right? And there was a statement made earlier about, and I agree with it, how frustrating it is that they're continuing on, that we're in this predicament to have this conversation, that our entire community, be it the clubs and everybody else, aren't all aligned, or maybe some of the other districts, and that we even have to have this conversation. But we do, because we can see they're choosing they're exercising their option, and they're choosing to continue to do these things, which is very different than the mandatory education piece we have, and our legal responsibilities and liabilities to starting school. So in my mind, I like the fact that if we made a choice tonight to continue to move forward and let these kids play, that it's their option, that it isn't mandatory, and I'm not making any choices for them or supposing that I know better than what they want to do for their families, because I am not that person. This is optional. This is a choice. This is an area where we can ask legal to put some waivers together for us. We have a lot of different responsibilities as trustees for their safety. This isn't a mandatory school situation. And I want to give them their own choice that everybody else around us has. And so for that, I'm not sure I can agree with what we have in front of us right now tonight. I don't think it does either of those things.
So what about our contracted? I mean, I hear you. Like I completely understand and can rationalize exactly all the things you said. But we do have contracted employees that are overseeing all of this, right?
We do.
That are. So I mean, talk to me about that piece.
Okay.
I guess I just want to know your take or your.
So I thought through that, right? And I thought, well, first of all, I've never met a coach or a student athlete that didn't want to compete, right? But I didn't pull as we did. We asked very clearly before we started school. We wanted a survey, and we asked of that. Survey the teachers, survey the parents. And we got some answers that we didn't expect, and we listened to, and we adjusted because of that survey. So I thought about that with this piece. And then I thought, okay, if I ask them to play, does that mean the coach has to do that? And secondarily, if they don't, am I affecting their livelihood, right, of their salaries of that? So for example, that's why I feel that it's different from education in that I mandate something as a trustee to say, you have to play, or you have to be in school buildings in this environment. And they're not comfortable with that, and they pull back and say, no, I don't want to. I'm asking them to take a leave of absence, which is something that could seriously affect their financial livelihood for their families. Unfortunately, coaches' salaries are itty bitty, and I don't have that same high level ramification on their financial implications for that. And I haven't met a single coach that says they coach sports for the financial benefit that they get. Some of it's supplement, absolutely, it's helpful. Again, never met one that was their driving factor. So I think I just went off that premise. What are your thoughts on that?
Madam Chair, I'm trying to understand your concerns. I don't know if we're just seeing this from two different sides. I'm seeing this as an opportunity an opportunity for a season, but that whole opportunity is hinged on the requirement for our community to move from red to yellow. That's how I'm reading this document. And so what I'm hoping that happens, and allowing our students and our student athletes and our coaches to begin conditioning on the 17th. To me, that is giving them the option that I heard you saying that we're not giving them. So I was confused. I feel like this is giving them that opportunity that that our disadvantaged students who cannot play club sports would not have otherwise. So I'm seeing this as a move toward equity, rather than our other choice would be, I suppose, since this is our district personnel's suggestion. I guess I don't know what our other choice would be because we cancel the season, but this seems like it's hopeful.
Yeah, and my understanding, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is that though if we remain in the red, that IHSA says we're not doing this anyway.
Well, and that's my struggle with trying to understand how all the other districts who are also in the red or haven't even started or are also online have separated the educational piece from the sports piece, and they're moving forward with practices on the 17th. And I might feel better with this if we said at the high school level that we could start to practice on the 17th, and then we're just subject to the conference, right? We don't even know if they're going to have games, but I at least put them on an equal playing field. And with the middle school, if we said we will allow them to play in their regular conference and their regular games with everyone else as everyone else is doing.
So
just to be clear, not everyone else is doing it. Caldwell is not, and we don't know what Boise's doing. So it's not everyone that's doing it.
And I do want to clarify that West Ada, Boise, Valley View, CUNA made it clear, seeing who else was there. I didn't hear the clarity from BK. But the other schools were really clear that there was no competition if they were in red. So they may be moving ahead with practice, but they are not moving ahead with competitions if they're still in the red.
And I'm okay with that. Because I understand that there's a lot more out in front of us. I would just want to be aligned.
Clarify aligned with, because there is no alignment in the SIC. Just let me be clear.
Right.
Yes. And we're not, I certainly don't want to give an impression that we just yet haven't come to the place where we found those common points of intersection. And it will take us a little more time to get there.
Yeah. And I don't want to debate what I think exactly that is, because there is a motion on the table, and I think it's right that we vote on that before we were to even discuss anything further.
Chairman Ross, may I ask a question of
Absolutely.
Superintendent Keller? Are you able to speak to this unalignment of the SIC? Like, is there just a whole variety of different opinions, or what is can you maybe help me understand? Nobody can come to a consensus. Is that everyone has a different idea, or can you speak to that a little bit so I can understand why there's no decisions being made?
Sure. Sure. So remember that the decision-making body for each of our districts really is our board. So we have 10 different boards processing information, looking at the context of their community. Then we have superintendents who are having this discussion. Our principals are having this discussion. So you've just multiplied 10 superintendents and you probably have 30, 35 principals having that. And then our ADs. So the system just has a lot of people with input. There are a lot of people, because of the documents and just the thing that you mentioned tonight, Trustee Keller, a guidance document says things that even within the guidance document, there's some confusion.
Yeah.
So then there's opportunity for interpretation. And then another thing that's really compounding this is the SIC covers 2 different health districts.
Yes,
So
I see.
we're getting
Okay.
wisdom and advice from Central District Health, who has done things like mask mandates and moving a county from category 4 to category 3, to Southwest District Health, who at this point hasn't done any of those. So we've got different philosophies going on. So that's what I would say is causing the slowness to come to some consensus.
Thank you.
And then I just have to come back to a question I asked earlier, because I thought as we discussed this, and again, I get we got this evening, but that our requirement from
Does somebody have a
INH.
question?
Oh, I'm not talking. Hang on. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
So is the requirement from them for us to have a plan that the board approves and we're going to consult with the health department? Or is there somewhere a requirement from them that if you're in a community where it is substantial spread, no games are played?
So we could actually, Mr. Jers, we could bring up this document. It was in the board packet at our last board meeting so that we could all look at that together. It was one of the documents, let's see, yes, on the 30th. And fall reopening, and then IHSA fall sport COVID guidelines. So the part that Trustee Keller just took us through, if you'll go down to the bottom of this first page under school requirements, here's where you see the 4 requirements, and it is listed as a requirement from our guiding agency. And here you can see you have to have a plan for fans and attendance. This guidance was actually produced in July, mid-July. I'm not exactly sure of the date. And so it still is aligned with the governor's plans in this particular section. It talks about school districts may use governance, the governor's reopening guidelines. You have to have a transportation plan, a plan to deal with the positive test, and then a plan to return athletes to participation. So those are the 4 requirements that a board must approve in conjunction with the guidance of, in our case, Southwest District Health. And so at the end of our document, we're saying, hey, we think we can get that to you by our September 1. If you would now, Peter, go down to, well, scroll slowly and I'll make some comments here. A little more. Here's a section that now talks about points of emphasis. Okay, this is face coverings. We can go on. Point number 3, I think, says, and here's where this language is difficult to follow and is open to interpretation. In point number 3, it says in the second sentence, when a school or district closes due to COVID-19, there should be no practice, training, or competition among athletes in that school or district. Remember that this is under the section that says points of emphasis. Is that guidance? Is that direction? And are we closed or are we open and delivering education online? If you'll continue down. And now I'm going to kind of look for, I think these are not numbered, so about the 10th page in, and it begins outlining some expectations when we're in category red and yellow. So here, right here. So athletic guidelines specific to category 3. Now we're back to following, I guess, your interpretation, the state board's 3 categories, or district health categories, which are 3 or 4. And then you can see here limits on gatherings. So no gathering of more than 10 people who are in the red. Sports venues are closed to the public. No locker rooms. Workouts, and here's where our recommendation says, it looks like we can do workouts. We can group kids into pods of kids We can continue doing some weight training and some conditioning, it looks here, as long as we're implementing those things that we talked about in the summer. And then it tells us to do social distancing guidelines. And then it continues down and it gets a little more specific about, well, what does this mean? Do you get to share equipment? Should you not share equipment? What does this mean for basketball? What does this look like for volleyball, softball, etc.? So again, this section is called athletic guidelines, specific to category 3 or 2. And then you can look in yellow that groups of up to 50, and a lot of this guidance aligns with the guidance that SIC agreed with and that we've been following through the summer. And now I don't know what question I'm answering other than we wanted to go to the actual document to see what's there. I think those might be the pertinent sections. There was a section that I think Trustee Westfall talked about. If we go to the end, they start having appendices. And in those appendices, they say, hey, for football, we consider this low risk, moderate risk, etc. And here are the things that we want to talk more specifically about. So here's cross country, for example. So that's the resources that we, our ADs are very familiar with, that we're beginning to dream about in our dreams, as we're familiar with it in trying to create some suggestions and guidelines for us.
Trustee Westfall, did that answer your question okay? Was there something more that we should consider that you're thinking?
No, it just had been stated several times when we're read, we don't get to play. And I'm not sure that's been answered, but because there are guidelines and things like that. But it explains to me why
the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, it explains to me, I think, why we see variations amongst our neighbors who are closed or not open, and then what we see here for our teams.
Correct.
I think that's correct, and I think that speaks to that potential inequity piece of we are saying and we're not playing if we're in red, and I think with an approval of this tonight, we clearly sent a message that we won't have seasons.
That we won't have seasons?
That we won't have seasons because we have defined in our red for our schools that we need a percent positivity of less than 10% rate. And let's be clear about where our community is currently at. We're at about 50% positive. So to think that that's going to drastically come down in a couple weeks time from 50 to below 10, we could hope. Not sure it's realistic.
So what are you suggesting? That
we would not continue with this motion and maybe start with a new one, which is where I'm sitting in for my vote.
I think you would have to go ahead and vote on the motion before you can
Correct.
dismiss the motion.
That's correct.
Yeah, if the motion fails.
If the
then-
motion fails, that's what I'm getting at exactly. So I think we need to vote on this and then decide if there are any other ideas.
Great.
Any further questions, trustees? Okay, let's go ahead then and go for a roll call vote.
Trustee Simpson,
Aye.
Trustee Westfall,
Aye.
Trustee Kipp,
Aye.
Trustee Keller,
Nay.
Chairman Rost.
Nay. Okay, motion passes 3-2.
May we take a break, Madam Chair?
Yes, I think we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Video off. When I see you again, we'll start. Everybody back? Looking for Betsy. Yep, everybody's back. All right, let's move forward. Next item.
I'll let you
There you
take the lead on this one.
Oh, sorry, superintendent contract. I apologize. So this is just the time of the year in our calendar that most commonly we are moving forward to our goals for the year. We have typically finished with negotiations. And then we are able to address the superintendent contract. We're not done with negotiations. However, we did feel as a board that that wasn't going to hold us back from doing our duty. We wanted to keep you in contract and continuing in our regular time frame. And so we went ahead and kept this on the agenda tonight. Trustees, I think we had some opportunity to look at this. What we have is last year's or her current contract, as we are currently in it with the superintendent. And at this time, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, for a motion.
Yes.
I move that we extend the superintendent's contract an additional year to 2023. And on the, with no change in compensation, our district has a salary freeze. And the superintendent's contract would reflect that decision being made for other employees in the district. And then an amendment to the addendum to the superintendent's contract to increase the vacation leave to 20 from 15. And then the other dates in the document changed to reflect her contract. Did everyone catch that? 1 more year, no pay change, and 5 more vacation days.
I second that. Moved by moved by Trustee Westfall, seconded by Trustee Simpson, which I also very much am in agreement with, and wanted to show my solidarity with the group in those comments that were also brought to us as well, with agreement of the superintendent and her ideas on that as well. Any further discussion or thoughts on that, trustees?
To speak to the motion, our superintendent, we evaluated her earlier, doing an excellent job. I wish we could make some changes in compensation. She wanted some more vacation time that she can't take. So I hope that she will be able to take it. And that's it.
Thank you. No, I'm thankful that we were able to keep this on the agenda, just as a show of confidence that we do have that in our superintendent. She did have a great evaluation this past year, and so we definitely would love to keep her around and are happy to extend that contract option into this motion on the floor. Trustees, I think we're ready for a roll call vote. Can I ask?
Just a question, if I may. So this is my first go round with this. Just wanting to learn. So we do an annual update of a 3-year rolling contract. Is that?
We have the option to do so.
Okay, but so that's what we're choosing to do tonight. So it'd continue to be a three-year contract. Great. I think
We can never exceed 3 years.
But it is not mandatory to do so.
That's correct.
Any further questions? Thank you, Trustee Kipp, and I apologize for not giving you the time or the context behind that. So thank you.
I just wanted to speak to my second. I hope we've said it enough, Superintendent Keller, that your leadership and you're doing amazing things, and I can't thank you enough. And I know you deserve 5 more days for sure, and probably more than that, based on the lack of rest that you and your team have gotten over this summer and this past year, the work that you have done. Very much appreciate that. I do have a question because the evaluation tool is in here. I'm hoping that that's because it said action discussion. Are we discussing that, or does this motion mean we keep evaluating using that same tool?
I'm not entirely certain why that's in there. This action item was to speak only to her contract. We did have plans for later this evening to go into executive session and start to discuss the evaluation tool that we want to use for next year.
Perfect. I just wanted clarification on that piece. Thank you.
Chairman Rost, if I can just insert really quick and say I too appreciate Dr. Keller and the leadership that she has provided, especially through this rough time. And I would say that it was her very clear leadership and the leadership of the board through this spring that encouraged me to want to be a part of the school board and even want to join, because I thought, wow, these people they're on the ball. They're doing amazing things. And so I'm honored to be a part of it, and I'm excited again to work with you, but it is because of great leadership. So I just want to say thank you from me.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Westfall?
Aye.
Trustee Kip?
Definitely.
Trustee Keller?
Aye.
Chairman Rost?
Aye. And that passes unanimously. Congratulations. And we hope that you're able to use at least half of your vacation days this year. We know you're typically not successful in getting away. There is usually some sort of crisis. So let's hope, knock on wood, we don't have any more major crises and you're able to do that.
Sounds good. Sounds perfect.
All right, moving on.
Mr. Dewey is here and would stand for questions on the monthly budget status report. This represents July, which is the first month in our fiscal year. So budgets are still adjusting a little bit, but everything looks pretty traditional and pretty normal at this point in the year.
Perfect. Any questions, trustees?
Maybe just a reminder for me about the bond fund being at 48%. Actual, I think this has to do with the adjustments we made, but I'm always needing to be reminded about that part.
Yeah. Mr. Dewey, would you like to respond to that, please?
Yeah, it actually has nothing to do with the adjustments we made. These are actually payments that we are due, and most of our.
Can you hear Mr. Dewey?
No, Randy. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Randy, we can't hear you. It shows that your mic is on, but maybe you're not close to it.
I could hear him. He was just a little bit quieter.
Same. Now I can't hear him.
I can't hear anything now.
Things real quick. Hold on really quick and let me do my Bluetooth, and I'll just do it on my phone.
Okay, there you are. We can hear you and we can wait for that.
You can hear me now? Okay. Hold on. I'm just disconnecting this one here. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. For my earbuds must have been going out because you guys were meeting for a long time. The bond payments are really just nature of when our bonds are actually due. So our bonds are due usually in February and in March. Interest payments are due usually February, March time, and then 6 months later. So August and September are generally when our bond payments are due. So this is just the nature of when our bond payments are actually due, not necessarily anything about what we actually did as a levy for the revenue side to come in to pay for the bond payments.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Just FYI, Trustee Keller, this will probably be the easiest budget report to read of the year.
The first one, right?
Yep.
I'm grateful. It's a good time to start.
Oh, we already went over it for an hour and a half. She's an expert at it already.
Oh, I'm sure. I appreciate that, though. Thank you.
All right, Chairman Rost, with your permission, can we move into policy? Oh, now you're on mute.
Thank you. just double check one more time that trustees don't have any further comments for Randy, because I bet he signs out. All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Have a good evening.
Thank
All
you.
right. On to policy.
So we do have an action item, a second reading of our immunization requirements. Just as a reminder, this is an update of the standard ISBA policy to reflect the new requirements, particularly for our seniors. The significant changes since our last read are represented on, I think, the last page, where parents are able to opt out with any, one more page down, Mr. Jers, I think. I'm looking for the ors and the ands. Anyway, in that last section, parents have any 4 of those choices to opt out. They don't have to meet all of those requirements. Other than that, you're seeing what you saw last time, and we'd be ready for a second and final read.
I move we approve policy 3525 for a second reading.
I'll second. So moved by trustee Westfall, seconded by trustee Kim. Any further discussion or questions, trustees?
I have one question on the page that we're currently looking at under number 4. It says a child exempted under one of the above requirements may be excluded by the district in the event of a disease outbreak. And because I am a brand newbie when it comes to reading policy, as a parent, I just thought excluded, what does that mean? And I had the opportunity to visit with Dr. Keller this morning, and she mentioned that this is in reference to a code, but the code isn't referenced here. So I don't know, I'm not moving that we have to put the code in, but I'm just wondering, would that be helpful for the future if we referenced the code? So if someone wanted to know, what does it mean to be excluded by the district, what all that entails? Because I think that could be a very broad or narrow interpretation.
Right, and the code that we're referencing is 33205, which is denial of attendance. And there are 5 reasons that a board of trustee can exclude a child from attending. And one of them is for the health and safety of other students. And that's the clause that we use in order to exclude children who are not immunized when we have an imminent condition that could impact the health of the students or staff on campus. So it would be easy for us to add that reference.
Superintendent Keller?
Yes.
There's 3
that's
legal
not me.
references at the bottom of the page there. Immunizations required, exemptions, and then the IDEPA code.
Right, we're just referencing why can we not, what code gives us the ability to exclude students. And so we're just talking about adding the 33205, denial of attendance.
Superintendent, I'm really comfortable with you guys adding those legal references. I don't see it changes the policy. It could be added as a reference to the public and others.
I'd be happy to see that added as well.
Okay. Easy to do.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Westfall?
Aye.
Trustee Kipp?
Aye.
Trustee Keller?
Aye.
Chairman Rost?
Aye. All right, that motion passes unanimously. And the next policy?
It's just a retirement. And I don't know if Clerk Wallen can help me, but we have reinstated following ISB model policy. And so this is just a retirement of a policy that we've reworked and is now numbered in a different section.
Go ahead.
I move that we retire policy 10022.
Second.
Moved by trustee Simpson, seconded by trustee Westfall. Any questions? All right, roll call vote.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Westfall?
Aye.
Trustee Kipp?
Aye.
Trustee Keller?
Aye.
Chairman Rost?
Aye. And that passes unanimous.
Great. I think I see Maren on the line. I'm not sure if she has a legal update for us or not, but Maren, can you join us?
Hi, Chairman Rost and trustees. I don't have anything specific for tonight. I see that there is an update on the sale of Parkview and the warehouse purchase under the superintendent's comments. And our office has had an eye on those things that are going back and forth. So we have been kind of involved in that, but she'll kind of give you more specifics about that process and where it's at. But just wanted you to know that we have been involved and we've seen everything and we don't have any concerns with that. So unless there are any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. I actually had a quick question.
Sure.
The governor is asking our legislative body to come back for some special sessions. I've seen some drafts of some language, some potential conversations that could be impactful to the school boards. I wasn't sure how much your office was looking at that and would be in a position to apprise us of any of those things. Just kind of thinking to the next couple of weeks of things coming down the line.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about that today because there are several things that we're interested in hearing as they move forward. And we have had our eye on some of the drafts. We try not to get too crazy about legislative drafts because the legislature always goes in a different direction. But we will definitely be looking at those as they're coming out and assessing whether or not that changes any, liability or risk assessment or decision-making ability of the board as those things come out. And hopefully we will receive some guidance that's a little bit more clear so that there are some more bright line rules that we're able to implement as we move forward. And we'll be happy to take a review of that generally. And then if you guys have specific questions, let us know and we'll look further into that on your specific questions as well.
Thank you. I appreciate just kind of knowing that you're abreast of it, and potentially at our September 1st, you may or may not have an update for us on that. So thank you.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chairman Rost. I had similar question.
Perfect. So while Maren is here, and she's welcome to give you an update, we have officially signed the papers on the sale of Parkview, and that's been executed. And we currently are waiting for the final number in order to cut a check in order to finalize the warehouse purchase. Remember that this contingent on the sale of either the Parkview or the block building, we'd finish the purchase of the warehouse. So it has worked out well. And that's it, because I've had a lot of other updates that we've already shared tonight. So
perfect. Thank you. Trustees, any comments? Should we go through that with a roll call vote? I think that's easiest. Tammy hears me.
Sorry.
You're good.
Trustee Simpson.
I just want to kind of keep everybody, I wanted to bring it to our attention to be paying attention August 24th with the special legislative session. In a time where tough decisions have to be made and nobody wants to be held liable, I just really want to go on the record and say it's part of our job to keep students and staff safe and healthy. And I don't think it's necessary to remove the liability there. And so, but I just want fellow trustees and the community to be aware of what's happening and just, participate in those conversations with legislators and with your community members and with us as trustees, so we can be informed and make good decisions as those things roll out. Thank you, guys.
Trustee Westphal.
Thank you. Just wondering, I know we just approved our reopening plan, but our health department has a fourth category, and I'm wondering, as we live in our plan for a while, if 3 categories are enough to maybe get us where we would like to be with kids in our buildings. And I had shared that with Chairman Rost, and she said to share it in the comments. So I would share it there. That as we live this, maybe we need to grow it.
Are you okay if I respond to that, Chairman Rost?
Sure.
So Southwest District Health has done a crosswalk, but as we get a little more time to breathe, we can certainly detail those out. So certainly the orange and the yellow in Southwest District Health aligns with our yellow. And they have crosswalk that so that we can see that. There is a document that's out there that we can share with you. But certainly we can detail those nuances a little more specifically now that other plans are starting to be in place and we have a little more capacity to look forward to that. Thank you for that comment.
And they are getting really good with pinpointing data too. Thank you.
Trustee Kip?
Yeah, just a comment. I will be, the fall begins for my teaching schedule, and I have a Tuesday evening fall class that I teach for 7 weeks. And so I will miss you for a few meetings, but I've informed the chair and the superintendent about those things, but just wanted to let my colleagues know.
Trustee Keller?
Yeah, I think I just want to say thanks for letting me be part of the process tonight. It's definitely an interesting time to jump into a school board. And I obviously have some opinions, and I appreciate you and the respectful way in which you, I should say, work as a board. And I very much enjoy learning and seeing things from different sides. And it was a good first meeting for me, and I appreciate you guys making it good. Lots of tough decisions, but I'm excited to have a voice, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Chairman Rost?
Not at this time, thank you.
Board self-assessments.
The chairman asked me to do it, and for our new trustee, we take turns assessing the board on some areas that we strive to do well in, like are we prepared? And so we have satisfactory, needs improvement, and unsatisfactory. And I thought for the most part, we were satisfactory. When we get down to governance style, I think the times that we are in are putting us maybe a little more in the weeds than we have been in the past. But when they put these levels of details that they want boards to weigh in on, that's where we're at. So yeah, for the most part, I thought we did pretty good.
Thank you. All right, upcoming meetings. Feels like we have these back to back, doesn't it? So we originally had a board workshop scheduled for August 25th. We went ahead and moved that, made a special board meeting for September 1st. The reason for that was so that we could review our opening plan, because if you all remember, we approved the fall opening for the first 2 weeks. From August 24th to September 8th. And so we were looking on September 1st to talk about what does school look like from September 8th and on. And so I thank you, Trustee Westfall, for talking about ideas like maybe an orange or a 4-stage or some of those kinds of things, just in preparing us for our next meeting. And again, more data that we're going to hopefully have. I was also able to kind of reach out and ask too what you would like to see at that meeting. I was able to forward some of those ideas onto the district. If you continue to have any more ideas of data you'd like to know, people you'd like to hear from, while we still have a couple weeks prior to that meeting. So I guess I'm saying, get in that next week, if you can give me any more ideas. And I did hear from all of you, so thank you. this is really the time to get that out so that the district can prepare, and we can look at, again, another fun decision that we get to put on our plates. So that is our September 1st meeting. We may have to sprinkle some other items into that special board meeting, but we will turn right around the next week later with our regularly scheduled board meeting for, again, policy and a lot of other typical business that we need to continue to conduct and keep on our calendar. Any questions on these upcoming meetings? We did also have some discussions about potentially getting our next fall 8th alignment, our fall 8th plan for school of what we'll do going forward, to maybe talk about trying to align that with some meetings that we already have so that we don't have to continue to adjust dates as we did this month. So we are looking at that so that this isn't a recurring theme. Okay, thank you. We do have a need for executive session in that we just want to continue with our duties of goals. And I know we're in some challenge time, but I appreciate you guys of sticking to a lot of these responsibilities, ideas, and things that we don't want to have to go by the wayside just because we're in some difficult times. So we wanted to continue with that discussion if that was all right with the trustees.
Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Nampa School District Number 131 recess from a public meeting into executive session in the manner and for the purpose authorized by Section 74-206 Idaho Code to discuss matters pertinent to this district, specifically subsection 1B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student.
A second. So I think that's been moved and seconded, and we need a roll call vote.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Westfall?
Aye.
Trustee Kipp?
Aye.
Trustee Keller?
Aye.
Chairman Rost?
Aye. All right, thank you. And we'll enter our breakout rooms and hopefully be back soon. It is already pretty late. So, Trustee Keller, I don't know if anyone is with you. You don't leave the screen. You want to enter the breakout room.
Okay, no one is with me. How do I enter the breakout room?
You should get.
Oh, I just joined. Okay, here.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I think Allison and I are still waiting for ours.
Tammy, I'm not missing anybody, am I? I don't think so.
Did Paula go?
Yep, Paula.
Okay, she's just always last.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you did either.
We got the 5 trustees and Paula.
Yep, it's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
is. Okay. There was, yeah, I don't, no motion or anything. I think we're just back and
Yeah. Question on September 1st.
Oh, okay.
Plan is Zoom.
Yeah, I think as long as we are in the red and we are not asking to have students and staff in buildings, then we are not either. And so when we're wholly online, we are on Zoom. When we get to the stage where we're hybrid, we can kind of talk about where we think that puts us.
Okay.
Kind of my thought of what we'd been doing already previous.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Sleep well. Thank you.